What's up, everyone? How are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Deku What If. What if Deku killed Bakugo during their first fight? If you enjoy, then please like, share, and do comments. Kachan. That name irritated the ashy blonde 4-year-old to no end.
Do you love Lemon Deku What If stories? Join our Patreon for exclusive 18+ mature Lemon Deku stories you won't find on YouTube. What you'll get: daily exclusive Lemon Deku What If stories, early access to new content, vote on upcoming story ideas, chat directly with us, and share your own ideas, request custom story concepts. We'll bring your favorite what if scenarios to life. Become part of our community today and help shape the next big Deku story. Your ideas could become our next exclusive release.
But it wasn't like it meant anything whenever Deku said it. He was the only one who ever called him that, and no one really listened to him whenever he did. Besides, the runt said it out of respect for his power. He supposed it didn't hurt to have a nickname, not like the kid had anything to look forward to once they grew up. Poor quickless Punk would at least make a good footstool. At least Dragon Wings and Finger Freak, for as forgettable as they were, helped cement his image as the strongest. Better to start practicing for his future agency now rather than later. It couldn't be helped. Katsuki Bakugo just happened to be blessed, while Izuku Midoriya happened to be cursed. Wasn't that the yin-yang BS the schools always talked about? Either way, Katsuki was the top dog, and if anyone had any common sense, they'd acknowledge his greatness or suffer the consequences. Kachan, that log doesn't look very safe. Deku cried for attention. The runt may have been the smartest, aside from himself of course, one in class, but he had not guts whatsoever. He was the biggest crybaby the blonde had ever known, still running to mommy whenever things got scary. Ha! Katsuki outgrew the need for his mother months ago. Why she still insisted on taking care of him was... Creak. Shit. Finger Freak and Dragon Wings, of course, stood there like idiots as he fell into the creek. Not that they would have helped. Finger Freak broke his fingers any time he tried to use them to carry anything heavier than a full backpack, and Dragon Wings was barely able to fly 2 feet of the ground. Sure, the fall stung his butt a bit, and he had a slight headache, but he was fine. A little fall like that couldn't knock him down. He was the next coming of All Might. This was just another. Kachan, are you okay? Deku, freaking Deku of all people, had the balls to jump in and say that. To him, the green runt's hand stretched out to him. You look like you needed help. He needed help. That nerd had the gall to look down on him. That quirkless bastard actually thought he was better than him. What did he think helping him when he was done made himself look strong? That somehow helping him made him a hero. That freaking look of pity he gave him disgusted him. Get away, Deku. He immediately shoved that hand away, startling the nerd. Sure enough, the false bravado Deku held on his face was replaced with the usual pathetic tears and fears. You're not a hero, you quirkless bastard. Kachan. Now die. Bakugo planted his hands on Deku's face and hit him with a full blast, the strongest one he ever let out in his short life. Deku's head was slammed against the muddy ground, and he was out like a light. The dumb bastard didn't even have the guts to run away to mommy. Yeah, you show him, Bakugo. Put that trash in its place. Whatever. He was too pissed off to accept the meaningless praise from those extras. He looked back to Deku, still knocked out. Serves him right. He made his way out of the creek and didn't look back. Deku would either follow them from way behind or run back home. Either way, it wasn't his problem. One day later, Deku didn't show up for class that day, probably cried to his mother too much and convinced her to let him stay home. It was one thing to be useless, but now he was lazy. Stupid bastard. 2 days after that, Deku was nowhere to be seen. He asked the old hag about it, but she was weirdly quiet. More than that, she was cold, distant, didn't even give him the more colorful words he's come to adore so much. It was like talking to a brick wall. He didn't ask the teachers about any of it. The extras might assume he actually cares. The only thing he was concerned about was the nerd giving him more pity. 4 days later, he finally saw the nerd again. It was at the park, and it looked like he was walking alone, lost. Might as well taunt him for that. Hey, Deku, did you lose your mommy, or did she realize how worthless you are? Deku didn't turn back. Upon closer inspection, Katsuki realized he wasn't wearing any shoes either. Weirdo, was he asking people to call him out? Hey, I said. Katsuki tripped on the face. There was a bump on the sidewalk that wasn't there before. He got up without a problem. Stop your worthless ass and... Katsuki tripped again, this time over a rock he knew for sure wasn't there a second ago. Whatever. See ya when you stop hiding behind your mom's skirt. Unknown to the explosion boy, Izuku Midoriya smiled as his tormentor left him alone. I'm not useless. 2 hours later. Damn Deku. Katsuki muttered quietly as he unconsciously complained to his mother about today. Deku looking at him with pity was one thing, but now the damn nerd thinks he could ignore him entirely. When he gets back to school, I'm going to. You'll do nothing, you fucking brat. The hag spat out bitterly, actually surprising the boy. Over a week of silence, and when he brings up Deku was when she decides to speak up. Do you even know what you did? I did, she... Slap. Actual tears formed from his eyes after that. His face stung as he gave his mother a questioning look. It wasn't like Mitsuki Bakugo was unconfrontational. She set the example for her son after all, but this wasn't an slap out of irritation or a pet peeve. This slap had anger, almost hatred from the mother. Looking up, Mitsuki couldn't hold back the tears from her own eyes. I really, really wish I didn't have to do that. Mitsuki's eyes were still wet, but she held her posture. Inko is well in her right to sue us, you know. Be grateful your friend's mother is a saint. Otherwise, things would be a whole lot worse for you. What are you talking about? How was he in trouble here? His mom was the one that slapped him for no reason. Last week, when you were playing in the woods, where was Izuku? How should I? Slap. You don't want to tempt me, boy. You literally have everything to lose. Fine, looks like the damn nerd found somebody other than his own mother to care for him. He kick his ass for this later. Deku was following me and the extras like he usually does. We walked over a log and he fell in the creek. Loser refused to get up, so we left him there. He said with skipping a beat. Even that loser could survive that. Okay, Katsuki did not like how she said that. So, somehow, in 70-degree weather in the middle of a creek during his fall, his eyes got burned so badly that it was as if someone threw his face into a fireplace. Shit, no getting out of this now. So what? I warn him to get out of my way and he never listens. Deku gets back up all the time. Except you used it on his fucking face. Katsuki would never say he was afraid of his mother, and even right now he still wasn't, but he would admit he was concerned about his safety at the moment. If it were any worse, you'd be sent to juvie, and I couldn't or wouldn't do a thing about it. Why are you so worked up about that, useless Deku? He's blind, Katsuki. He went blind from the burns you gave him. He won't be able to see anything again. Wait, he that's, he didn't do that, right. But the doctors, he shouldn't. He needs to be better, they fix everything. Yeah, they would, if he was taken to the hospital right away. But you left him alone. He spent an entire day alone without his eyesight in the woods trying to find his way out. No, he didn't. Deku should have got up. He always got back up, no matter how much Bakugo pushed him down. Deku always ran after him. He could have died, Katsuki. You would have committed murder. That would make you a villain. I'm a hero, Katsuki cried out in defense. I'm better than everyone. You're a bully, you're a selfish brat, and damn it, if I could go back, I would have slapped sense into you sooner. Katsuki never felt so small, even with his short height. The world around him never felt so much bigger than it did now. Everything was piling on him, and he wasn't sure he was strong enough to carry it. You used your quirk in public several times and used it against a defenseless kid, your supposed friend. You should be in jail. She grabbed him by his arm. And now you have to apologize. But how? I don't know how, but you're going to do it, you brat. Mitsuki dragged him to the car. And it's not to just Izuku, you need to go up to his mother too and apologize. To her face. I can't do that. She probably hates me by now. And you deserve it. But she currently the only thing that's keeping your whiny ass away from the police. Katsuki gulped. He could barely handle on angry mother. If she wanted, all she has to do is make one phone call, and you'll never get into UA or any other hero school in the world. She can't do that. She can and she will, you idiot. The police and certain heroes can put certain people on a list, and if you're on it, they will take away your right to use your quirk ever again. No. That'll destroy my whole future. Exactly, brat. These quirks aren't a gift we're given freely. There's a price to use them. Rules that prevent people from hurting others. That's why we need to have heroes. They're here to protect people like you from hurting everyone else. Like him, he was supposed to be a hero, and everyone in school knew it. His quirk was already stronger than his classmates. Everyone already praised him for having such power, and he already had lackeys that held on to his every word. What part about him wasn't a hero? The ride was more uncomfortable the closer they got to the Midoriya's house. His mom refused to say anything else, and Katsuki had no idea what the hell he was supposed to do here. What was he going to say to Deku's mom? Sorry your son is so weak. Sorry he'll never be a hero. He wasn't given much to work with. His mom basically kicked him out of the car and walked behind him as they made their way to the apartment. He felt like he was being led to a slaughter, and he prayed for any intervention to delay the inevitable. Sadly, that didn't come. His mother knocked on the door, and out came Inko Midoriya, a slim woman that looked like she gained a pound or two within the past week. It was easy to tell where Izuku got all his babyface features from, though that was the last thing Katsuki wanted to deal with right now. Inko's face was tired, plain, and simple. Few droplets fell from her eyes, but it was clear she was running out of tears to shed, and in its place, she seemed to be expressing something between despair and anger. The ashen toddler didn't know what he preferred more. You've told him what happened. Mistuki nodded. Good. A glare of disappointed was shown at Katsuki, and he felt frozen in his place. I knew I should have taken Izuku out of school the moment he came back with burns on his shoulder, but he said it was fine. Said that it was just Kachin roughhousing, nothing any normal kid would do. I don't blame you, Mitsuki. It's not your fault Katsuki just a terrible kid. Lie. Shut it. Somehow, her quiet disappointment was even scarier than his mother's open anger. The first thing my baby boy said to me when I came to the hospitable, the first thing that was on his mind. Mommy, don't blame Kachin. Even when you scare him for life, he still holds on to the chance that you'll be his friend. Shit, he really messed up now. I can't tell you how happy it would make me to make the call, just one call and you'll never be a hero. You'll be as quirkless as my son was. The question went unanswered. But my son still believes you can be good. I haven't supported his dreams like I should have, and right now I refuse to go against his wishes. So for his sake, I won't make the call. Inko looked very bitter at that, pretty much disgusted at the thought of Katsuki getting off easier than he should. Wait, Deku told her not to do it. Deku still looked down at. I'm not so forgiving, Bakugo. I will be watching you, and at any moment, if Izuku ever decides to change his mind, if he feels even remotely threatened by you, if I ever suspect that you're even thinking about attacking my boy, I will make the call. You'll never be able to use your quirk to be a hero, or for any other job ever again. Katsuki didn't speak another word. He couldn't speak another word in fear of incurring the woman's wrath. If he so much as breathed wrong, he was dead. I'll take your silence as I understand, right? The kid nodded quickly. Good, be fortunate that Izuku found a real friend. She's the one that found him. Visits every day to check up on him like a true hero would, something I doubt you'll understand. All there was left on her face was pure contempt. Now get the hell out of my home. And don't you ever try to talk to Izuku again. Katsuki ran out the door as fast as he could, closing the door. He waited for his mom to follow, but she stayed for a while. He couldn't hear everything that was happening, except for a few more tears that he swore were starting to leak out of the room. His mom came out after what he assumed was about 20 minutes. As scared as he was of right now, he could at least take satisfaction in realizing he didn't have to apologize to Deku's face. Though he couldn't for the life of him figure out why he had such an empty feeling in his stomach over that. 2 days later, Deku still hadn't returned to school, and apparently that was going to stay the case. The teacher stated that due to unfortunate circumstances, Deku would be transferring to special classes. Bakugo wasn't sure if the teachers knew the truth. They seemed just as dismissive about it as the rest of the extras. In fact, they seemed almost relieved that there was one less head to watch over. The kids made their excitement about it a little more vocal. Some were guessing it was because he was the only quirkless kid in class, and it would be safer for him to not be around people more powerful than he was. The teachers did nothing to correct them, and Bakugo was keeping his own mouth on the mater. After Mrs. Midoriya's threat, he'd rather forget about the bastard as quickly as possible. He couldn't. Deku held his entire future in his damn quirkless hands, and there wasn't a damn thing Katsuki could about it. 1 year later, Deku still wasn't in his class. From the little information his mom spilt here and there, Deku was going to school on the other side of town. His lackeys occasionally try to pry information from him, claiming their past friendship as a reason he'd keep up with Deku. Bakugo tells them to ampersand themselves. They no longer talk about Deku. The damn nerds probably laugh his ass off in whatever cozy lazy ass hand-holding institution he landed himself in, probably waiting for the day they meet again. 2 years later, the name Izuku Midoriya is forgotten by all their classmates. No one even bothers to so much as mention the nerd in passing. In a way, Bakugo felt validated. He always told Deku he was nothing, and now the whole class knew it. Deku was nothing, and now no one even knew he existed, except Katsuki could never forget. His mother, not being as subtle as she thought she was, would still go out and speak with Deku's mom. She mentioned Deku here and there, but nothing really all that interesting except for when she get excited about Deku's progress. Progress of what? Being less useless than he usually was. Somehow being able to get around without looking like a dumbass. Well, now he was blind, so someone would always have to hold his hand, so that probably wasn't going to happen. His mom also constantly asked the school to contact her whenever he inappropriately used his quirk, Aka, every other day of the week. She'd scold him, usually never gave him the chance to properly train his explosion whenever he had free time, either forcing him to do his homework or practice the drums. He wouldn't argue with the homework. His record needed to stay extra clean after the incident, so good grades were a must. But why force him on the drums? Okay, he didn't hate playing, but in the long run, that didn't seem very practical for a heroic future, unless this was the old hag's plan for him. To force him to be extra good at school only to take all his dreams away at the last minute. No, his mother wasn't that evil, was she? 3 years later, Bakugo saw Deku for the first time in years. Still had the same shitty shag haircut, still had the lame red shoes, still the same useless Deku, except for the eyes. His mom and himself ran by Deku and his mom without noticing each other at the store. They were about a yard apart from each other, but Bakugo was able to get a good look at his eyes. The dead, lifeless eyes that creeped him the hell out. He'd rather stare at the old shitty crybaby Izuku forever than to stare at the depressing mess that Deku called a face. He walked by his mother, but she wasn't holding his hand. Deku seemed to be walking fine on his own. There were even a few moments where his mom put some distance between them, and Deku somehow managed to make his way back to her. If it wasn't for the eyes, Bakugo could have swore he wasn't blind and was lying to everyone in order to get sympathy. Also, he didn't wear shoes. Weirdo. Whatever. Looked like the loser was at least trying to not rely on others. Still couldn't be a hero. 2 years later, Deku finally returned to class, in the middle of their 6th grade year. The teacher, surprisingly, didn't write him off for quirkless. In fact, any mention of his quirkless state was non-existent. The few kids that remember him from preschool either don't say anything or quietly mutter about his lifeless eyes. Deku's also a lot shorter than he should. Nothing midget-sized or anything, but still shorter than most of the guys in class. Heck, even shorter than most of the girls. Aside from the eyes, the only thing that stopped Bakugo from saying he was the same worthless nerd was his demeanor. Cold, serious, almost unfeeling. A few kids waved his hands in front of him just for fun, only for him to somehow notice and give them a serious death glare that had them shivering for the rest of class. The teacher also did nothing to accommodate Deku for his blindness. He just plopped him in an empty seat in the room and began the day's lesson. Deku's desk also had slabs of cement right next to it. Whenever the teacher had them take notes, he picked a piece up and began running his fingers against the smooth surface. No one called him out on this, and only Bakugo seemed to care. Given his circumstances, there was a definite reason why that was the case, but it still bothered him to no end. Who dumps a blind kid in the middle of class? What kind of teacher doesn't do anything to help him? And how was he, out of all people, the only one in class who gave a damn about what the nerd was doing to be here? Bakugo wasn't even sure Deku knew of his presence. After class, no one announced their name to him or helped him or asked him where to go. Okay, it wasn't just him, right? Everyone was being an asshole for not at least doing something to help him. Okay, that made him one too, but everyone already thought he was one, not that Deku really needed it. He somehow managed to get around just fine without help. He always took the stairs, weird because most people would be fighting to use the elevator. He sat alone at lunch, at least that's what Bakugo assumed. The nerd never was seen during lunch, always the last one to leave the classroom and always the first one to come in, so no one really knew where he went. Damn it, nerd, why won't you say anything? Did he think he was still better than him? Damn that BAS. Calm down, the nerd doesn't know you're here. 1 month later, damn that nerd to hell. How dare he keep ignoring HIM? Every day at every time, the little nerd would do everything he could to walk anywhere that wasn't near him. Whenever the nerd used the bathroom, he somehow knew when he would go or when he was about to go. Every time school let out, he'd somehow beat him to the door. He'd follow the damn nerd, but he somehow managed to avoid him, outrun him. The runt had the gall to outrun him. F*** and that. He told his mom about it, but she didn't say a thing about it, only for Bakugo to mind his own damn business and leave the kid alone. After all these years, the hag still wasn't going to give him an inch. Whatever. Like he needed any help keeping up with the nerd. The damn runt was freaking blind. If he really wanted to, he'd... You what, Bakugo? The classroom was empty, the day had ended, and Bakugo was the only one left sitting at his desk. People say I have a muttering problem whenever I'm lost in my own thoughts. Hearing it now, I understand why people find it annoying. How do I know I'm talking to Katsuki Bakugo? Easy, I have ears. You're the loudest guy in class, and whenever your head gets too big, someone's always calling out your name. It's easy to connect the dots, easy enough for a blind guy to do it anyways. He chuckled. Okay, the person currently responsible for his entire future finally decided to talk to him for the first time in about 8 years' time to get some answers. He needed to be as tactful as possible. Deku, you bastard, what the heck is wrong with you? Nailed it. I'm not the one screaming like a maniac to the blind kid, so I say I'm perfectly sane. Damn it. The nerd wasn't this snarky, he shouldn't be this snarky. I'm meeting up with my friend outside. Feel free to follow or not, I don't care either way. Stop looking down on me. Don't blow him up, don't burn him. He hasn't done anything wrong, at least that's what every witness would say. In Katsuki's eyes, Deku was committing the most vile sin of all. Thou shalt not go a day without acknowledging Katsuki Bakugo's greatness. Deku, I don't know when you decided to grow a pair, but it's seriously pissing me off. I'm the one pissing you off. Deku actually stopped in his steps. I'm the one working his butt off to live a normal life, and you're the one pissed off at me. Oh, I'm Bakugo, and I need the adulation of all my peers because I can't muster the strength to face the reality of what a horrible person I truly am. Seriously, Bakugo, grow up. If I'm such a thorn in your side, why'd you even come back? Thought your whiny ass needed to be changed every hour on the hour. At least I don't need to have 14 people at once kiss my ass every time I pass a test. He began walking, becoming more and more disinterested in the conversation. And I needed to better my education if I want to get to UA. There's only so many times you can memorize the alphabet in Braille before it gets a little boring. Wait, there was only one thing Bakugo could do right now. What the hell, Deku? You think a shitty nerd like you can be a hero? You moron. How can someone be so deluded? UAs ain't going to care that you're blind, you bastard. They're not going to hold your hand just because you have some sob story. You're saying it like it's impossible for me to sign up. You'd be lucky to get into the general course at best, but I know you'll be aiming for the hero course. You know me so well, Bakugo. It almost sounds like we were friends at some point. Damn it, Deku, even blind, you still don't know your place. 2 loud explosions, bigger than he's made in a while, erupted, and Bakugo was so tempted to let the nerd have it, but restrained himself, knowing he was risking too much already. What's the matter, Kachan? Afraid to go at me? Afraid to finish what you started? The dead eyes of Izuku Midoriya cut deep, and Bakugo found himself flinching at the brunette's confidence. Probably the only upside to this was that Deku couldn't actually see his face. You know, I'd actually thought you'd at least mellow out by now. What, you think I'd getting on my knees and beg for forgiveness? I wasn't hoping for miracles. I was hoping you'd at least keep your awfulness to yourself after everything, but even that was asking too much. Deku opened the door and walked out of the school, somehow knowing where the stairs were. How the hell do you get around so well? That's for me to know and for you to figure out, or not. Really, I stopped caring by this point. The sarcasm, the confidence, the sheer lack of fear, was Deku really this dumb? He was the one that blinded him. Deku should be shivering in his dumb red shoes and crying for his mommy. Deku, if you think you're better than me, then you got another thing coming. I'm the one going to the hero course. I'm becoming the next All Might. You're just a blind, quirkless, worthless piece of shit. Everybody forgot about you then, and everyone will forget about you again. You definitely got 2 out of 3 of those wrong. He paused for a second. See ya later, Bakugo, and yes, pun totally intended. Now I got a friend to meet up with. We're not done. Is there something wrong here? A high-pitched, sinister-sounding voice came up from behind, and before Bakugo could turn around, a knife was pressed against his neck, just barely missing the pressure needed to start drawling. I was waiting for my Izukun by the door, and to my shock, I suddenly find him being threatened. Now that makes me very angry, and the only thing that can make me happy right now is seeing some blood. Wah, Deku, who's this bitch? The lady is threatening your life, and you think it's a good idea to call her a bitch. This is the guy you look up to, huh? The girl kept holding the ashen blonde clothes, so there was no escaping without risking blood loss. Sorry, Izukun, I don't see it. Look up to is putting it nicely, especially since I can't look up or down or anywhere else. I'd prefer admire from afar, since that's the only way anyone can halfway tolerate him. The psycho bitch chuckled. Oh, my sweet Izukun, you know just was to say to make me happy. She tossed Bakugo to the side and practically ran the runt over with her embrace. I really wanted to spill his blood, though. It would make him much better to look at. Toga, you already drank a liter of blood today. Hey. First, you know animal is hardly anything good. Pig blood can only satisfy me for so long, and besides, who'd say I'd drink his? He probably tastes like crap from all those explosions. Hey. And I only drink directly from people I love. You were my first, after all. What kind of girlfriend would I be if I drank his blood? Girlfriend? Not that Bakugo was surprised Deku would attract a freak, or that the freak would try to kill him, but Deku and girlfriend should only be in his head when the words will never have are in between. That's not, we were still in middle of talking about it. AKA, he's still super shy about it. The psycho, Toga, loudly whispered, you should see him in bed, he gets flustered from simple cuddling. That's not mentioning when I tricked him into touching my. And we're leaving. Toga, please stop mentioning private affairs to former tormentors. But you won't let me gut them. How else are you supposed to show how cool you are now? By doing nothing and care nothing about what they do. Sure, if you want to go all emo about it. What part about me is emo? The noise faded away, but Bakugo couldn't stop staring. He wanted to get some freaking answers, and the last 3 minutes left him more confused than ever. What the foo? Himiko Toga didn't know what she did wrong. She didn't do anything wrong. Everyone else was just being silly. Mommy and Daddy were always pretty silly when they were around her. They got pretty over-worried about a lot of things. Every time she scraped her knee or cut herself using scissors, they got more panicked about it than she did. She didn't mind the sight of her own blood oozing out of her skin. It was literally seeing the life dripping out of her body. What could be more beautiful than that? Why did her parents worry when she asked for her meat to have a little blood on it? Sure, she was basically asking them to feed her raw meat, but people ate sushi all the time and no one freaked out over that. And the bird. The bird that turned them cold, dead silent. It had fallen out of the sky, broken wing from hitting a power line or something. It limped to her, all curled up in pain, ready for it to die. It didn't struggle, it didn't fight its death. It laid there and rested soundly by the foot of the 5-year-old. It was such a beautiful sight. A little blood bleed from the side of its neck, and the smell was heavenly. The blood was warm, fresh, not like the usual cold and diluted blood her parents reluctantly gave her. Its scent was life itself, it yearned to die at it. It tasted suo good. The bird wasn't in any pain, at least not in any more pain than it already was. Dad said a lack of blood was bad, but was relatively painless. The bird hadn't minded. The bird was at peace. The bird was happy now. It no longer felt pain, she helped it, she connected with it. She was a monster. That was the last thing she heard her father say before she never saw her again. Her mother, as loving as she could be, stayed in her room and barely ever left it. School apparently didn't care that she didn't come, not that her mother gave her the chance to go anywhere. What had she done wrong? She put an animal out of its misery, and everyone acted like she shot the bird out of the sky. She wasn't wrong to do that. Everyone else was wrong. Maybe they needed to have some blood dripping out of there. Toga was told to slap herself whenever she thought about something like that. Granted, her father was the one who said that, but old habits die hard. She wasn't a monster. She wasn't a monster. She wasn't a monster. She had her hair tied in buns and had sharp teeth like an angry puppy or kitty. People love kitties. Kitties bite people all the time, and no one got mad at them for that. Cats weren't declared unholy monsters just because they gave a little scratch. It was times like these when she snuck out of the house. Her mom spent a lot of time with a large purple bottle in her room, so she was safe to go out for the day. It wasn't like a 5-year-old had anywhere special to wander off to. She wanted to go to the beach, but there was a lot of metal junk pilling, and she'd rather not be around stinky garbage. There's the park, but kids usually got scared once she showed her teeth when she smiled, and plus the other adults might ask where her mother is. The only real choice was the woods, isolated, quiet, and free from fear. Nobody around to judge her for her teeth, for her love of blood, and she couldn't be tempted by the rare opportunity to drink some fresh from the body itself. Well, human body at least, except something smelled sweet. It was like someone tossed a fire pit over a picnic, but it smelled sweet. The scent got stronger the deeper she went. Ooh, it smelled way better than the bird blood. It had to, no, it couldn't be. Help. A voice, help me. A high-pitched voice, definitely someone her age, maybe younger, but who lets a kid alone in the woods. She was in the woods for Pete's sake. Does that mean there was more than 2 crappy parents in the world? Because that made her feel a little better, to be honest. Help, please, someone. The voice was sad, a familiar type of sadness she knew instantly. The kind of sadness that could only be made through immense loneliness. Who'd leave such a sweet-sound kid all alone? The voice made it easier to follow the scent's trail. They both came from the same source. A small ditch area that had a stream running through it. Within it, a kid, noticeably smaller than her, covered in dirt, messy green hair. Another thing about the kid, he kept going back and forth like her couldn't see what was in front of him. Hey. Who's there? It was more of a cry than a shock. Please, somebody, is anybody around? Hello, I'm up here. Up where? Right behind you up here. Toga just didn't get this, boy. Where was that smell coming from? And why couldn't this kid have common sense? I can't see. He finally turned around, and the only thing Toga could focus on from that point on was the dark red, almost black, substance that surrounded his eyes. Those dark, beautiful eyes, best of all, they smelled like blood. Of course you can't see. You got blood in your eyes. She had to admit she never saw anyone or anything bleed from the eyes before, but it was something to behold. Can you please help me? Pain, the boy was in pain, just like the bird. She needed to end this kid's pain. She needed to take his blood, she needed. No, Mommy didn't like when she bit into other people. She hated when she tried to drain others of blood. Wait. The blood was already leaking out of his eyes. He didn't seem to like it in his eyes. She wanted blood, ding. Hey, let me help you. She grabbed him firm by the shoulders and he panicked. Who are you? What are you doing? Just stay still. She leaned closer, the scent intoxicating her with every moment that passed. She brought her mouth closer to his eyes, grinning at the opportunity waiting for her. Hey, what are? The boy could do nothing, feeling so trapped and scared. All her could do was stand still at the wet sensation suddenly going over his eyes. Are you licking me? Duh, you need to get the blood off, and I don't have a towel. Toga mostly ignored his struggle as she continued. Okay, but why licking it off? It actually tickled like a puppy licking him, except this wasn't a puppy, it was a girl, a pretty-sounding girl. At least he hoped it was a girl. Who are you? Toga. His nervousness wasn't anything she wasn't used to from others, but he was the first to ask for her name. That made him braver than most people. I'm Izuku Midoriya. He half chuckled, half stuttered the words out, conflicted in his current position. Ho, how did you find me? I just followed the smell and the noise, but mostly the smell. She gave another big lick. Smell. Yeah, your blood is sweeter than anything I've come across. Taste like life. Why you like my blood? Yes, it's my quirk, probably. I'm still not too sure about it. All I know is whenever I feel good, whenever I drink it. Oh, do you get stronger or something? Don't know, never really tried it. He wasn't running away, even after hearing about her quirk. Granted, he doesn't look like he even could, but wasn't it the thought that counts? Can you see now? And no, he said shakily. For however long he's been out here, everything was a foggy gray. It was definitely better than the all red, but that really didn't matter when you couldn't see anything else. But my eyes feel a lot better than before. I think you got the dry blood off. He took a step forward and fell right into the girl's chest. So sorry. Hey, calm down, no screaming. Toga brought him in closer with a sudden hug. You can't see me, so there's nothing to be sorry about. Plus, this was the most contact she's ever had with anyone, including her parents. She wasn't going to let go. You need help, follow me. Okay, he tried leaving her embrace. She didn't let him. Toga. You can't see, silly, I'll be your eyes. She still held onto him tightly, making her way out of the creek. It was a little difficult, seeing as the boy couldn't really reach out to grab anything, but he was fairly light in weight, so pushing him had little strain on her. Honestly, it only cemented in her head how much he felt like a stray kitty. I'll walk you to safety. Thank you. His head rested on her shoulder as he struggled to keep himself awake. How long was this kid in there? Did he even sleep? You're my hero. A hero? That's a word that's never crossed her mind before. Sure, she liked heroes. She knew what they did and knew they were important, but she never gave the name too much thought. If heroes helped people, then where were they when Daddy left? When her mommy got sad and forget to pick her up from school? Where were the heroes when this boy, this cute, adorable, sweet boy cried for help for who knows how long? In the end, Toga felt like the world only worked when people learned to take care of themselves. She wasn't wrong to drink blood or to find its scent delectable. Everyone else was wrong. If she didn't like blood so much, then she would have never found little Izuku. How could that ever be wrong? 2 hours later. It was fairly easy to lead Izuku out of the woods, and it was even easier to find someone for help. Then again, one kid leading another kid with heavy scars across his face was enough to cause concerns from any onlookers, who called emergency services right away. Guess people were less jerkish than she assumed. It was pretty fun riding around in an ambulance, mostly because she could smell the extra bags of blood the cart contained, even if they didn't let her see it. What made her feel a little better at that was staring at Izuku while he slept. He looked a lot more peaceful. He also held a tight grip on her hand that she really liked, which is why the doctors spent 15 minutes getting her to let go. She sat alone for a while. Alone like she usually was, alone like Izuku, where they just meant to be thrown out. Did the world make a mistake in making them? Someone left that kid all alone. Mommy left her all alone. Hey, Toga looked up. You're the one who found Izuku. It was an older lady, tall, slim, and her face was full of tears. Other than that, the standout feature on her was familiar green hair. Are you his mommy? Yes, Toga didn't know how to respond to this. She's seen plenty of people cry before. It wasn't unusual for her to find her mother crying on the couch after a sleepless night. But boy, could this lady cry. If the proof wasn't in front of her, she could have sworn someone left a sink running. Is your mommy here with you? No, she's home. I leave the house whenever she forgets to wake up in the morning. She lets you wander the woods all by yourself. She's not a very good mommy. Izuku's mom didn't know how to take that. It was pretty funny to see the woman's clear confusion over what she said. I'll have to ask about that later. Why you saved my boy's life, and... She broke down again, and Toga now felt a little uncomfortable. Sorry, I have to be strong right now. My baby needs all the help he can get. Is he okay? He's stable. There's nothing wrong with him, but... She lightly slapped herself to force the crying to stop. His eyes got really burned. If he gotten treatment sooner, he could have been fined, but he won't be able to see ever again. What? But she helped him. She got the blood out of his eyes. He should have been okay. She was his hero. Wasn't a hero supposed to help people out of these things? I am sorry I couldn't save his eyes. No, don't you dare blame yourself. The sudden shouting blew away the forming tears. If you weren't there, nobody would have found him. He was gone for a full day before you came along. If you hadn't, he might have. Toga knew what she was going to say, but for some reason the lady didn't say it. Was there something wrong with death? Was saying death bad for some reason? My boy was with his classmates. My son is quirkless. He gets treated badly by others for it. Why, now there was something wrong with being quirkless. She gets treated badly for what her quirk does, and he gets treated badly for not even having one. What sense does that make? People were really dumb if they acted like that. I don't know. He wants to be a hero. I guess other people think it's impossible for him. I can't even say I've been supportive of his dream. You don't sound like a good mommy either. Guess I'm not. No, not if I let this happen to him under my nose. She suddenly hugged her with a very big squeeze that Toga really wasn't expecting. Affection, love, almost completely foreign to her. You're probably the first person in a while to show any care or concern for him, hee. She let go. Are you all right? Why, yes, I tend to let my emotions get the better of me. The lady wiped away her tears. Thank you for bringing my baby back to me. I'll never be able to express how grateful I am. You are my hero. There was that word again. Toga Himiko, blood-sucking hero. A hero that cared about the people no one else does. Can I see him? Yes, you can. He'd be more than happy to see. She choked up for a second. Hear from you. One day later, Toga didn't go home that day. When she saw little Izuku on his hospital bed, she could only watch silently, hoping he'd open his eyes at least. When that didn't happen, she just fell asleep right next to him, with his mother not too far behind him. Toga also didn't see her mommy when she woke up, neither did she go back home. All Toga knew was that Mrs. Midoriya said she needed to call somebody about her situation with her mother. That didn't bother her too much. She got to go to Izuku's house. Izuku still couldn't see, like his mother said, so Izuku had to lean against her for support. Toga wondered if this was what being a hero was like, helping others that are unable to help themselves. Izuku sure held onto her tight, like letting go was the last thing he wanted. It sure felt nice that he felt that way. It also felt nice to be in a house that was warm, clean, and had a functioning air conditioner, though Toga felt as if she should tell that little tidbit to Inko-san another day. It also felt nice to see another kid's room that wasn't hers. She had to laugh at the amount of All Might products in it. Toys with various versions of his costumes, bedsheets, posters, basically what she imagined what the average kid's bedroom looked like. Toga herself never really had anything like that, mostly because her parents completely denied her request of painting the wall blood red. Wow, Isuzu, I like your room. Guess you really like All Might. Of course, he's amazing. He's able to save so many people with a smile on his face. That's the kind of hero I want to be. Izuku jumped in the air, though he lost his footing when he landed, making him lean against Toga even more. Or at least, that's the kind of hero I would be if it was possible. How is that impossible? All you got to do is smile and get people out of danger. That's what I did with you. All right, you did, and I love that you did, and you're amazing, and you sound pretty, and... Izuku stopped. Wait, that came out wrong. I don't not think you're pretty, but... I get it, I like you too. Thanks. Anyways, I don't have a quirk. I can't save anyone. That doesn't make sense. I saved you. But you have. I drink blood. I cleaned your eyes, yeah, but that's it. I'm basically just as quirkless, yet I got you out of the woods. But... Are you telling me I would have been less heroic if I didn't have a quirk? Then no, Then what makes you different from me? Toga deepened the hug. Now, are you going to be a hero? Tell me, are you going to be a hero? Why, yes, Izuku felt a little tingly. It was faint but noticeable. Are you going to show the world that cute smile and save them? Yes, he felt the tingle more around the soles of his feet. Yes, what? I'm going to be a hero. He jumped again, smash. A pillar of rock from out of nowhere popped up behind him, through the ground. 9 years later. Toga Himiko found herself resting her head on her short friend's shoulders, smiling wildly. After-school walks were the best. Hey, Toga, you awake? Yeah, just remembering the best day of my life. Shouldn't you be getting more training in? You do take the entrance exam for UA tomorrow. Relax, Izukun. I already picked at your brain enough time to pass the written. And I know if I start training, then you want to train, and you used your quirk enough today avoiding splody pants. You're saying that like that's even difficult to do. His voice can be heard from a mile away. Izukun, do you need me to perform death by tickles again? He's cuter whenever he shudders. And no, I get the picture. Still, if Bakugo passes, which is highly likely, then I need to prepare for the inevitable clash. You know that doesn't have to be. Toga, as the designated best friend and the not sorta but definitely will be Gilla friend, knew all about their long history, how the blonde Boom Boom was responsible for Izukun's blindness. My offer's still on the table. We're not burying him alive. One, you assume I'd want him alive at all. Honestly, she couldn't really tell if she was joking or not. Maybe it was the transfusion bags the hospitals were kind enough to donate, or maybe having an actual person she could touch and hold and talk to without having to harm. But seeing people bleed was much less satisfying as it used to be. Maybe after being the Midoriya's hero, she saw how awful everyone else acted around blood, which sorta affected her view on it. That didn't mean she still didn't like drinking it, especially her little Izukun's. That was a bond she could only share with him. She wished they could do it more often, but that might freak out Inko-san. And two, shame on you for thinking such delightful thoughts. Don't all you have to do is make on phone call and he's out of the hero game for good. Yeah, but he sighed. His mom once a month asked him to make the call, and every month he said no. I don't like him, but he's part of the reason why I'm in the ring to begin with. I at least owe him. You owe him shit. A fair point. But if he truly isn't going to be a hero, I don't want it to be because of me. His shitty attitude will do more than enough for that. And here I thought you weren't so prideful. Oh, my dreams of you being the perfect hero are over now. Toga. Relax, just kidding. I respect your decision. Respect, yes, like, not at all. But if I see him treating you like dirt and the heroes at that school do nothing about it, I'm swooping in and taking care of him myself. Hey, that's still a year from now for me. Things could change. It didn't even take a second for either of them to laugh at that. I know that the accident gave you your quirk, but did it give you a sense of humor also? Nah, I have life to thank for that, and you, my hero. Damn it, it still sent chills down her back when he said that. That's why she would go to UA. It was thanks to her Izukun that she even considered this. She would be a hero, his hero. Well, I can definitely say this is unexpected, completely possible but very unexpected. Izuku Midoriya swore if he ever heard the doctor's voice again, he would have punched him in the face. No, Izuku wasn't a violent boy, he had no desire to hurt anyone, but this was the guy that dashed his dreams of being a hero. No matter how much good this doctor did in his life, Izuku would always think of him as nothing more than a dream destroyer. I don't understand. Inko did her best to keep herself together. It was hard enough dealing with both her son's blindness and Toga's home life, but apparently the universe decided that she didn't have enough problems to worry about. So now she find herself in the last place she wanted her son to be after find a 40-foot pole of dirt smashing itself through her son's room. Nobody in the apartment had a quirk that could do so, so that meant either somebody was lying, a villain was around, and just decided to mess with them for funsies, or her son. You said he had the toe joints and everything. How? There have been weirder things. Before quirks, people could develop an extra finger or ear. It'd be completely useless, but it'd still be there. My best guess is that your son is something like that. You guess? No need to get upset, I'm just laying down the facts. The doctor kept his rather indifferent tone together. Even with over a century's knowledge, our world still has much to learn about the nature of quirks. But how is it possible? I attract small objects and my husband breathes fire. None of those relate to the ground at all. Your quirk can move small object. Despite being a weaker version of it, you have a telekinesis quirk, which is defined as external manipulation of surrounding substances. Izuku appears to simply have a mutated version of yours, a type of geokinesis, And if what you said is true, a very powerful form of it at that. I still can't understand why now, why after he went. Those without the quirk factor, technically speaking, are still capable of housing quirks. The human body, ever since quirks, has mutated and changed over the course of time, which is why people like you can naturally develop colored hair even though it has nothing to do with the quirk itself. The genes are still there, they just remain inactive without that quirk factor. Best guess, the trauma he sustained forced his body to compensate, hence quirk. Izuku realized the gist of what the doctor said. Kachan's explosion, the boy that blinded him, the boy that hated him, was responsible for his quirk. If Katsuki didn't hate him so much, he wouldn't have gotten his quirk. The universe wanted him to suffer no matter how much good he wanted to do in his life. I know that this might seem strange, considering the circumstances, but is there a chance that my boy can? Still having him cling on to that dream. It was hard to tell if the doctor was being mean or apathetic of the situation. Look, I know being quirkless for a short minute must have been unpleasant for him, but the fact of the matter is that no one, and I mean no one, is going to take a blind kid seriously as a hero. The same old song, the same old story everyone told him over and over again. Such a shame, too, it's such a resourceful quirk. But on the bright side, there are plenty of opportunities opened that'll allow your boy great success in the future despite his current condition. Nothing's wrong with me, Izuku said defiantly. His mother held onto her boy's shoulders tightly. The doctor seemed a bit offended by what the green-haired child said. Of course not, but I'm sure you're aware being blind mean you'll have trouble getting around. So I'll learn to get around, then I'll learn to be a hero. The doctor looked like this kid was destroying his doctorate and burning it to ashes. Kid, the moment people realize you can't see a gun in front of your face, they're not going to have any qualms with pulling the trig. That was the first out of 2 times within the week in Midoriya found herself slapping somebody in defense of her son. It was also the last time Izuku let anyone tell him he couldn't be a hero. Around 11 years later, many people had a hard time believing he was blind. He didn't make a habit of advertising it everywhere he went. He hardly ever wore those glasses with thick, dark lenses, except on extra sunny days. And people back at his old middle school only really knew about it because the teachers made sure to announce it before he even entered the school. But he could walk around just fine. Stairs didn't give him any sort of trouble. He could walk across the street without a stick. And if he was extra clever about it, he could walk in crowded area and pinpoint almost anyone he wanted to. Standing outside his dream school, Izuku couldn't help but smirk. Before the accident, people said he took after his mom in practically every way, which happened to include the infamous Midoriya waterworks that became well known around the apartment complex. Plumbers would come by just to double-check if it was actually a busted pipe. He wondered if he could actually see the school right now. He'd shed a few tears. Right now, all he could settle for was the butterfly sensation settling in his stomach. Right away, he could tell he was attracting more attention than he honestly cared to have. He couldn't see the people around him stare at him, but his quirk had alerted him of other people's presence, and he could sense a small crowd circling him just to get a glance at him. Not because he was blind, no, that would indicate this people knew he was blind. No, the staring became more commonplace within the last few years, and it honestly was for a very good reason. He was the only examinee that wasn't wearing any shoes. No shoes, no socks, just his standard plain black school uniform and nothing else. If he had any less self-control, he would call everyone out for staring at the blind guy and make them feel self-conscious, but he knew better. This was probably the deciding factor in most of these kids' life, so it was probably best not to make anyone any more nervous. Instead, he'd smile as they all fled the area as Bakugo shouted profanities at all the extras for getting in his way, noticeably bumping into his arm on purpose, because Bakugo was just that petty to do so. So you actually made it, shitty nerd? Didn't know UA had a handicapped course. And I didn't know UA allowed assholes, so I guess we're both disappointed. Knew Bakugo probably better than he knew himself, a fact Toga irritably pointed out, as she so happened to know her Izukun the best. The ashen blonde was more bark than bite nowadays, if what Auntie Mitzi told him was true. There was nothing they could really do with the potty mouth. Mitsuki herself hardly ever put a filter on her own words, but he wouldn't attack anyone physically in fear of getting blacklisted. Izuku knew after today, Bakugo would probably believe he'd finally be free. Oh boy, was Izuku ready to crush that reality. Shut up, Deku. Fail already so we don't ever have to see each other again. Too late for that. I'm a bit ahead of the game on that, so I get what I want whether or not I pass. If there was any other upside Izuku could think of his current condition, quirk aside, it was messing around with people's poor choice of words. It took his mom 4 years to break that habit. Bakugo didn't respond, either out of anger or dumbfoundment. All he really could do was walk up the stairs and shove aside the short figure that was in his way. Hey! The figure, a girl by the sound of it, started to fall backwards, which could lead to a nasty bruise at best, or a broken neck at worst. Either way, it didn't seem like the blonde bomber learned anything about unintended consequences, which probably meant he never will. Whoops, wouldn't want you to fall before the examen. That'd be a pretty bad omen. He caught the girl from behind and slowly helped her regain balance on the step. Sorry about Mr. Tall, blonde, and nasty over there. Never been the friendly type. I can tell, thanks. The girl, not that Izuku could see her, had a brown bob haircut with large pink dots over her cheeks. You here for the entrance exam. Yep, hero course all the way, you. Of course, it's probably a long shot, but if I pass, I'd be getting the best education while at the same time making it easier on my parents. Right, UA, at least for the hero course and support course, offered free tuition for their students. After all, an aspiring hero couldn't afford to drop out of school over a little money, which only added to the ongoing mystery of how much funding was the school given. Then again, Midoriya always figured merchandising had a reason to exist as much as it does nowadays. So sorry, I probably shouldn't be blabbing about that. It's fine, people have different reasons for being a hero. What's important is that we save lives along the way, right? Right, I wouldn't want to be a rescue hero if that wasn't the case. The girl seemed infectiously peppy, if only he could see the smile she most likely had on her face. I'm Achako Uraraka, you're Deku, right? How do? Wait, she must have heard Bakugo say it before. My name's Izuku Midoriya. Bakugo calls me that to make fun of me. Oh, sorry. She repeated over and over. Her voice was cute. He wonders if this is how Toga felt his endless mumbles. I probably should have known that from the way that jerk said it. It's all right. Most people assume that's my name due to how many times he said it. I just thought it was a cute nickname, or a shorter way of saying Dekaru. You can do it. Never before did anyone even try to twist that name into something good, not even Toga, who wouldn't dare to touch that name with a 10-foot pole, lest she attempt to shank Bakugo for it. You can call me Deku if you want. Really? Yeah, a name's nothing without its meaning, and you just gave Deku a new one. Come on, we probably shouldn't stand here any longer if we want to make it on time. Yeah, let's. As the boy walked ahead of her, the one thing on the girl's mind was his lack of shoes. Hey, are you not? He was inside already. Must be for his quirk or something. She shrugged. 11 years ago, sometime after the doctor visit, Izuku wanted to be more excited about his quirk. He wanted to go back to his friends at school to show them he was one of them. He wanted to show Kachan that he had a cool and powerful quirk and that he would be a hero that saves everyone, except that he didn't have any friends at school. Kachan hated him the most, and he was blind. What kind of a hero was blind? Duh, you. Toga said plainly as they sat on the bench in the park, hugging him closely. One would probably say too closely. You'll be the first blind hero. Maybe the only one that'll ever exist. Wouldn't that make you special? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. In a bizarre form of sense, it did. That was kinda how Toga always talked. She came by the house every day, getting permission from people Mom called child services, whatever that was. Lately, his mother was looking into a subject called fostering, which, from what Izuku could tell, meant Toga probably was going to live with them. So Toga, from the last couple of days, was getting more and more cozy around the Midoriya household, specifically around him. For a kid that almost never had any physical comfort from anyone other than his mother, getting constant hugs from a girl was both the greatest and scariest thing he's ever had to face. Of course, and now that you have a quirk, you can stop being so sad and mopey about it. Toga also spoke honestly. Right. Was it worse to be quirkless or to be blind? Izuku hasn't really spent enough time as either to figure it out. Toga didn't call him out when he was either, and she seemed just as supportive when he got it. But I just don't know how I'm going to use it if I can't see it. Just do what you did before. I don't know what I did before. That's okay, I'll show you. Toga got up from the bench and reached for his shoes. Let's get these off. Hey, what are you doing? If we're going to do what you did last time, then we must do everything the same. You were barefooted, so you must be barefooted to do this. Why didn't he think about that sooner? So much for being the second best in class. Okay, now what? Get excited and start jumping in the air. Maybe then the ground will push up like before. But we're in public. I can't use my quirk in public. I'd be a criminal. Izuzu, I have fangs. Does that make me a criminal? No, but... My quirk allows me to drink blood. If I drank some that someone gave to me, would that make me a criminal? No. Then you need to stop being such a worrywart. Are you going to hurt anybody when you use your quirk? Not if I can help it. Exactly. If that big meanie that hurt you can get away with it, why can't you? But that's diff. That Mitsuki lady said he has a habit of yelling die. To people he doesn't like, you can't tell me it was an accident. Okay, was it wrong that he still wanted to admire him? Kachan had the strength to be a hero, that was for sure, but in the past few days, Toga proved to be better in other ways. Her kindness, her helpfulness, the way she never looked down on him despite his many faults. Okay, so I just need to jump. That's right. Okay, here we go. The exciting part wasn't when he was briefly in the air, it happened once her made contact with the ground. Feel something? No, Izuku half lied. Confused, he raised his foot and stomped it into the ground. What the? Anything. I can see you. Toga, I can see where you are. He walked towards her and missed her by about a foot. I missed, didn't I? Izuzu, what do you mean by you can see me? I don't know. When I stomped, there was this brief image that flashed in my head. Confused, he began making smaller stomps on the ground. Brief and quick, the image that Izuku saw was starting to become more and more clear, like messing with an antenna until the static went away. The world around him was colorless. Shades of gray, black, and white were prominent, but the features around him were vague. He could detect a small humanoid figure that seemed only slightly taller than him, which he assumed was Toga. He could even see the bench they were just sitting one right in front of him. It's like every time I make a big step, I can see what's in front of me. I can't see what you look like, but I can tell you're here. Weird. How does that work with your quirk? I'm not sure. How did his quirk work anyway? The doctor said it was telekinesis, but for the ground only. Did that mean he could control rocks, dirt, mud? What counted as ground anyway? The only pro-hero that came to mind at the moment was Cementos, but he had a limit to cement only. Did that mean he could be more powerful than him one day? Did Izuku, you're doing that cute mutter again? Toga interrupted. ID. Aunt mind it, but people are starting to stare. Sorry, guess that was creepy even for a blind guy. I was thinking my quirk lets me move the ground, but I always have to be near ground if I'm going to use it. Well, duh, ground is everywhere. I don't think you can go anywhere without touching the ground. Yeah, but what if I'm inside a house or school and there's carpet? Our apartment is on the 3rd floor, so how? He stood for a second and let his feet rest. The same tingly feeling was there, like it was trying to reach out for something, except the visuals were gone now. I think I can use the ground to see. But your eyes... Okay, I don't see normally anymore, but I can still notice what's in front of me. He began walking. They weren't big steps, but they did manage to form a picture, albeit not as clear of one as before. I think part of my quirk makes me notice when I'm around ground. If I can sense the ground around me, then maybe it lets me see whatever's on the ground, right, Toga? Silence, Toga. Maybe walking off without holding her hand was a bad idea. Hello, he cried out loud. Toga was the only one with him at the moment, and he had to be a dummy and walk off without her. What kind of idiot lets go of the one thing that's preventing him from being road pizza on the street? Idiot. Useless. How can he ever be a hero if he can't even use common sense, much less his quirk? Maybe Kachan was right. Maybe all he was just. Hey, Deku. Crap, the one face that he'll always be forced to remember no matter what. Maybe if he kept walking, Kachan would leave him alone. Did you lose your mommy, or did she realize how worthless you really are? No, Kachan doesn't get to say that. He blinded him. Thanks to him, he'll never be able to see the face of the only true friend he has. He took that away from. He doesn't get to walk up to him and act like everything's the same where he'll cower to his ever word. If only there was something he could do right now to block his path or something. Bump. Huh. Kachan tripped over a rock the moment Izuku began to walk a little faster. Wait, did he do that? Did he just will it? But he wanted to do it before and it didn't work. Hey, I said, another step, another rock, another amusing Kachan fail. Whatever. See ya when you're not hiding behind your mom's skirt. He did that. With only a step and a thought, did it take both? Did certain movements and certain thoughts make those rocks move? How much did this extend to his physical strength? Did his quirk apply to all rocks or certain rocks? Did that mean dirt too? Mud, soil. There was only thing that was certain and clear in the boy's mind. I'm not useless. Izukun, Toga, literally out of nowhere for him at least, tackled him at the front. Don't you scare me like that. What would I've told your mom if I lost you? I'm not useless, he happily whispered. Huh. I'm not useless. Present, you have got to be kidding me. Izuku didn't even sit for 5 seconds and he already knew that the universe was determined to let him know it hated him. Shitty Deku, can't you get your worthless ass out of my way for 1 second? I'm the blind guy here. How am I supposed to know ahead of time who's next to me? How'd you even know I'm next to you? Because you're the only one here shouting, and not everyone is as triggered as a angry Pomeranian. Percent you. How'd you even take the written anyway? You didn't even bring a $% pencil. Of course he'd pick up on that detail. Out of everything Katsuki managed to pick up on in the last 3 years was whether or not he carried school supplies. You'll figure it out if we get into the same class again. You think I don't have what it takes to pass this shitty practical? I'll kill you. Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to infer. Izuku couldn't even be bothered with him anymore, hard enough to concentrate on what's in front of him without eyes. Fortunately, Present Mike was a walking loudspeaker, so it was easy for him to pick up on what he was saying. Not that Izuku didn't have much to glean from the talk show host. Toga, in an act that actually could have kicked the both of them off the hero course if she didn't keep a tight lid on things, told him exactly what to expect from the practical. Yeah, it's nothing too special if I'm being. Just a bunch of walking nuts and bolts you gotta take out before time runs out. Really, I'm honestly underwhelmed at that. Seems a little too simple for such a prestigious school. Yeah, because nowadays, the epitome of being a hero is beating up and smacking down people for show, never realizing that maybe making a big show of things and glorifying fights is maybe doing more harm than good. That was something a bit concerning. Toga was a bit opinionated on heroes, especially when she started her year. It was actually the one thing the two friends found themselves, well, not arguing, but not in agreement with either. Well, villains have a habit of making a big show of things, partly relying on civilian casualty to keep the heroes distracted. Exactly, you get it. Heroes aren't people who beat other people up, they're the people who shield those civilians, lend a hand to those that fall down, help a blind kid when other people abandon him. Izuku had to raise an eyebrow. Okay, obvious, but you know I'm right. But you still passed. Yeah, except I didn't know I was going to. Robots aren't exactly the easiest to chop into itty-bitty pieces, so much of my time was wasted trying to take down like 4 or 5 three-pointers. That doesn't sound like it would be enough. It's not. It's thanks to this secret portion of the exam that I managed to score just enough. Secret portion? I'd think it'd be better if you went through it yourself. Besides, I probably said too much already. Just remember, they are watching your every move. Training grounds. Wonder exactly how big this place really is. Izuku only had himself to talk to on the ride over. Bakugo apparently forgot all about the practical just to make room for more petty attempts at discouraging the green-haired kid. This made them the center of attention around the other participants. A fact that one in particular, who in Bakugo's own words was a damn shitty four-eyed stick in the mud, made quite vocally when he raised his hand just to call the both of them out for disturbing the others. After that, Izuku was free to go off on his own, seeing as how Yua separated students from the same school, most likely to prevent people from working together, since part of the practical was to show off your own strengths. Fortunately, this just gave Izuku a chance to collect his own thoughts and analyze the area around them. The test was apparently taking place in some sort of mock city divided in about 4 or 5 different sections. All that was standing between them and the robotic riot was a single door. Izuku felt quite happy about the change into gym clothes. As he perfected his quirk usage over the years, Izuku found out he had greater control the more he was able to express with his arms and legs, which led to him buying more and more baggy clothes, not that he needed to buy much due to his stunted growth. As a result, Izuku pretty much fought for every opportunity to take off his school uniform the moment he was out, sometimes helped by Toga who'd eagerly rip all his clothes off in public more than once. It actually took a lot of arguing on his mother's part to remove the necessity for footwear during school. The principal, who Toga wonderfully described as Mickey Mouse's estranged mad scientist cousin, apparently agreed with the terms, so long as he passed the exam. Guess he must have been curious to see how a blind kid would pass. At least whoever Principal Nezu was, he was the kind of person to at least give him a chance. Most people would have written things off the second they learned about his blindness. Midoriya's attention soon turned to the girl on the far right, the same one that he had ran into Uraraka if he recalled correctly. She was standing perfectly still, but her heartbeat was racing face. Clearly nervous, he walked over to her. "Hey, you with the unkempt hair." He sounded even more annoying now that he was talking at him. Geez, did this guy ever loosen up? You were the same participant distracting everyone with you co-conspirators' banter. Are you trying to distract the others on purpose? Such a disker. Do I know you? The green-haired teen didn't know if the tall figure in front of him was more annoyed or confused. I don't understand what you... I mean, do we know each other personally? Of course not. If we had such a relationship beforehand, I'm sure the teachers at this refined establishment wouldn't allow. Then that means you don't know squat about me, metal legs. Yeah, he couldn't quite tell what the deal it was with that, but the taller boy seemed to have some sort of pipe sticking out of his calves. Weird. You don't know my intentions, you don't know how I work, so therefore you don't get to be Mr. High and Mighty and judge me before I even do something. The teen started shaking, waving his arms like some sort of manic machine. Well. That's what I thought, so why don't you turn around and walk the other way? You're distracting the other participants. A few spectators started laughing at the taller teen's misfortune, who by the way could only sink his head and mutter in shame and self-doubt. So that's what it's like to be on the other end of that stick. He'd probably even make Bakugo proud, like he ever want that. A few more people stared at him, probably wondering about his lack of shoes. Did someone let civilians in? He got guts, but how does he see anything with all that hair over his face? Probably too poor to afford shoes. But all Izuku could focus on was the sound of the metal entrance creaking open slowly. Breathing, Izuku into running position, ready to pounce at any moment now. All right, LETS begin. Present Mike began the test. The doors opened, Izuku jumped, and the next thing anybody knew, a huge pillar of pavement launched something small and green into the mock city. What are you waiting for, LITTTLE listeners? THERES no countdowns in real life. Run, 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 run. The green-haired kid has already taken out the first bot. 10 months ago. All right, children, it's time to think about your futures. I'd pass these career aptitude tests. The teach lazily exclaimed before throwing the papers into the air. But I know what you're all putting. You want to be heroes. All the children cheered, taking the teacher's passiveness as a sign to show off their quirks. Practically everyone raised their hand in confirmation, except for two, with one who couldn't be bothered and the other who couldn't even care. All right, settle down. You all have wonderful quirks. A bigger lie couldn't have been told. Just make sure to keep it on the down low during school. This is still a class after all. Hey, teach. The ever-booming voice of Bakugo rang. Even though Sparky Boom Hands had yet to put his hands on anybody within the last few years, his bark proved to be just as vicious as his bite. Don't lump me with the rest of these extras. While you losers get lost amongst the D-list sidekicks of nobodies, I'll be the next #1. And I'll make my start by getting into UA. UA doesn't it have less than a 5% acceptance rate? Can he even do it? He hardly uses his quirk. You can't just push us aside so brazenly, asshole. The students didn't know about his whole deal. They just knew Bakugo was more verbal than physical, at least when there was plenty of eyes on him, which seemed so bizarrely out of character for him. I already aced the mock exam, and my quirk is already the best one out of all of you here. I'll get into UA, I'll surpass All Might, and I'll be the #1 hero. Ambitious, ambitious. And what's going to happen when people start running away after you scare them off with your voice? The snarky voice of Izuku silenced everyone. Nobody quite knew how he managed to stay alive with his almost daily mockery of the ashen blonde. I mean, I'm almost tempted to run away right now if I already didn't know how pathetic you are. Deku. Ah, Midoriya. I believe you're the only other student apply for UA. Bakugo activated his quirk but kept it from spreading by closing his fist. Midoriya knew from the smell of smoke that he had been successful. Midoriya's applying? Isn't he blind? Must be a quirk that gets around that or something. Didn't Bakugo say once he was quirkless? Yeah, but the asshole also never does anything him. Maybe he's scared of him or so. I'm not, and %*% T scared of little, and QIRKLESSDEKU. He means nothing to me, just like the rest of this damn and %% school. Bakugo, do you need me to notify your mother about your mouth? Bakugo actually stood speechless before slipping back into his seat. The teacher continued the class after that. Bakugo kept on muttering profanities that he was able to easily pick up on. Another great thing about being blind was that he spent nearly all his time training his own hearing, having to get used to reading inflections only by sound and such. Class went by as if the asshole wasn't constantly shooting him death glares. Really doesn't work if the guy can't respond to it at all, and Izuku was prepared to end the day like any other day. You shitty bastard! How dare you mock me in front of everyone? Really, I thought we were all extras to your origin story, or something so equally inane. Why do you care so much if we mean so little to you? Even Bakugo's closest followers, Fat Wings and Finger Freak, the one time Izuku agreed with his former friend's choice of nicknames, couldn't help but snicker under their breathes at the blind boy's flawless logic. IIYOU and *% suck, you know that DEKU. Bakugo, holding back, charged towards a window and released the biggest explosion he's made in a while. Midoriya was actually impressed by the sheer raw power itself, which, if Auntie Mitzi was to be believed, hadn't been truly trained or tested in years. Man, that felt good. Oh, is little Kachan not getting enough P-Wactus with his quirk? Doesn't feel so good to be quirkless, doesn't it? Then again, I'm not one to talk. Bakugo wanted to let it go, Izuku knew that much. But the moment he ended that sentence, Bakugo got as close as he could to him without making it look too threatening and scowled. What the and do you mean by that? About being quirkless. Izuku said in mock confusion. Honestly, it was said that not even the blonde bomber was able to pick up on this now. Cause I'm not. Haven't been for a long time. Surprised Aunt Mitzi didn't tell you anything. So weird. He knew he was only fanning the bomber's flames at this point, but it was too good to pass up, especially now. I don't know where you got the balls to talk back to me, or how you can be so damn irritating, but don't think just because you have something resembling a spine means you can look down on me. Look down on you? You're still on that. Jeesh, if I knew you were this damn insecure about it, I would have left well enough alone. Izuku shrugged. Honestly, most days go by and I don't even think about you once. Last warning, Deku. I don't give a damn what the old hag says, and that creepy vampire bitch you call a girlfriend isn't here to save your ass. Because she's a student now, learning how to be a good hero, you know, the thing you claim you want to be. Bakugo sounded like he didn't believe him for a second, but probably realized that he literally had nothing to gain from doing so. Is that what you're counting on? Some flimsy connection so you can coast on by? Ha no, Izuku turned around. I'm getting in UA on my own by my own power. Nothing more to it than that. Don't you turn around, we're not done. Been a while since he's tried to attack from behind. Guess it was time to pull out old reliable. What do you mean by your own pow? Bakugo tripped on a littler hole in the ground that he knew from 3 years of being in this shitty school was never there before. How the and percentasterisk did you do that? Do I really need to spell it out for you? Man, you're really making hard to believe you have the highest grades in class. Don't you dare even try to make it to UA, Deku. I'm the only one here that's making it out of this shithole of a school. You'd have better luck getting a quirk by jumping off a roof. The last time I decided to listen to you, it cost me my sight. So sorry if I'm not hanging on to every word. Did this idiot really have no common decency in him? How has his mouth not gotten him expelled by this point? Bakugo's only saving grace there was that the meaning of those words were indirect, if anything. I'd watch your mouth, Bakugo. It'll bite you in the ass one of these days. We'll see about that, Deku. I'm not afraid of your quirkless, whiny ass. Bakugo kept going on, but Izuku tuned him out, though he smiled. Another great thing about his sword-not secret quirk, he always knew when someone was lying, present time. Okay, this isn't too bad. These things are fragile enough. Shouldn't take too much power to take them out. The blind boy steadied himself as he found himself against one of the mechanical menaces. Living in a concrete jungle sure does have its advantages. Izuku sent forth a big stomp forward with his right leg while at the same time bringing his arms upwards. Smack. The robot, from what he guessed, around a 2 or 3 pointer, flew upward with the pillar of cement that was thrusted underneath it, flying right on top of a 1 pointer. Bullseye. My, quite the precise attack, monsieur. An accented voice that Izuku couldn't tell was either authentic or over-dramatized. Not a pretty attack, but effective all the same. Ah, thanks. What was this guy? He didn't know if he was being mocking or sincere. The accent really botched things up for him. All Izuku could tell was that he was standing as if he were posing. You're welcome. Now I must be off. I pray that I see you around. He didn't really go anywhere. He just stood on his hands and stood still as a robot attack, which fell apart seconds later, which meant the strange boy probably had some type of emitter quirk. And people say I'm weird for not wearing shoes. Then again, everyone had their quirks, literally and figuratively. Who was he to judge? In his experience, all the best people were weird.
Do you love Lemon Deku what-if stories? Join our Patreon for exclusive 18+ mature Lemon Deku stories you won't find on YouTube. What you'll get: daily exclusive Lemon Deku what-if stories, early access to new content, vote on upcoming story ideas, chat directly with us, and share your own ideas, request custom story concepts. We'll bring your favorite what-if scenarios to life. Become part of our community today and help shape the next big Deku story. Your ideas could become our next exclusive release.
10 months ago again, he said what? Toga, despite not living with the Midoriyas for years now, always went out of her way to walk the blind boy home. It was their tradition, where nobody but them could get in the way of anything, which meant the time was free for them to do anything. For Toga, that might have been a bad thing, since she was one who had almost too much time on her own, even as a UA student. So if she felt the need to take a 3-hour nap with her Izukun snuggled close, or to vent her frustrations on the one being that made her Izukun upset, then that's exactly what she was inclined to do. I know it sounds bad, but to be fair, he really has no restraint on his mouth, and he could have said it a whole lot worse. Yeah, because suicide baiting comes in a variety of flavors. Toga wasn't going to change her mind on this, and he knew that was probably for the best. He's not a hero, and he's never going to become one. He isn't one yet, He'll never become a real hero, Izukun. You can't tell me that with the way he is. You're right, he's still the same stubborn, irritable brat I knew as a kid. But with his quirk, he'll be a shoo-in at the exams if what you said about it is true. Ugh, I hated taking that. It's too geared towards strength and power alone, not skill or ethics. Come on, it can't be that bad. You're telling me someone with a quirk like Ms. Joke or Eraserhead has the same effect on robots as All Might and Endeavor? No answer was given. Exactly. Tests like these are rigged for flashy standouts. Survival of the fittest. What exactly was the first lesson you learned when people thought you were quirkless? He sighed. Not all men are created equal. Exactly. Society has over thousands of heroes of all types, but the ones that end up famous are they guys that can use their quirks for show. That can't be entirely true. Merku's said to make it into the top 10 within a year or so, and being a rabbit lady doesn't really sound like it's powerful, and she doesn't even own her own agency. No offense, Izukun, but you're blind, so you don't realize how much her popularity relies on people's weird fetishes. Toga. And there was that MT lady debut earlier. She shows up last minute when Call Me Woods had it handled. Even you had to have heard what all those photographers were saying when it was all said and done. You're just a barrel of sunshine today. And you're my angsty little cinnamon roll that I can just eat up all day. Toga pecked the boy's cheek, making him blush. Or should I call you my little strawberry? You definitely juicy anew. How's VLAD King these days? The blind boy quickly changed subjects. I imagine going to school with you foster dad as your teacher is a bit weird. Hey, better him than Aizawa. That guy expelled an entire class on the first day. Really, he's that strict? I'm not sure. He came up to our class the day after, saying it's not worth teaching anyone with zero potential. Something about relying too much on quirks alone and not on skill and creativity. Can't say I don't agree with him. Toga sighed, looking down at her short sorta boyfriend, best friend, favorite body pillow. Even with my quirks shape-shifting, it's completely useless in most physical applications, and that still depends on how much blood I have on me at a time. If that's the case, I should probably start experimenting with my quirk now before it's too late. The two of them walked under an underpass, unaware of the slimy presence following them. It's going to be hard finding a place for me to practice with free range. And I keep telling you, you could just go to the beach. No one ever goes there, and it has plenty of ground you can use. And I keep telling you no because one, that place is essentially a dump for scrap metal, and I can't bend metal, and two, you know how I feel about sand. Oh yeah, it's coarse, rough, and it gets everywhere. You couldn't resist that, could you? Oh, course not. Well, what do we have here? An eck and distorted voice, like it was swallowing some water, appeared from behind. The two turned and found themselves facing some sort of sludge creature. Two medium-sized invisibility cloaks for me to choose from. Izukun, get behind me. Toga shoved herself to the front and pulled out two knives that were hidden somewhere in her uniform. Izuku knew where she had hidden them, but it was too embarrassing to say it out loud, and plunged them into the dark and gooey mass. I love it when my meat bags got a little fire in them, but unfortunately I'm on a time limit, so your boyfriend will have to do. The knives did nothing to attack, which meant this guy probably couldn't even bleed normally. Taking Toga's moment to pause, the sludge villain shot himself forward, briefly passing right through Toga, and encased himself on the blind kid. Don't worry, kid, I'll remember you as MY Hero. Too fluid, can't get a good read on his presence, which is on me. Izuku felt himself being lifted off the air, preventing him from bending a pillar to get the villain off. I'm off the ground, can't use my quirk. Get off of him. Toga dropped her knives and did her best to pry the sludge off, speeding vastly once she saw the villain force himself down her friend's throat. I'm not going to let you die. You can't die. Toga, Mom, if his life was any different, if he never had these two in his life, maybe he would have given in. His classmates' dismissal, his teacher's disbelief, and Bakugo's torment, maybe he would have believed everything that he had been told, that he was just Deku. They're the only ones in my life that have given me support. I matter to them in their lives, I'm important to them. Izuku desperately activated his quirk, even knowing the futility of it while being off the ground. They've become MY heroes. He reached out his hand, calling for something, anything to come to him. If I die now, I'll never be able to repay that kindness. I won't be able to save anyone in the same situation. A crack in the underpass wall appeared. Until I become I swear. He spat out as much sludge as he could. I want die. Slam, a huge chunk of concrete flew right into the sludge villain, smashing it off the boy, though this also sent Izuku flying to the other wall where he made a slight indent in it. Izuku. I'm all, did you have to hurt YOURSELF, you idiot? Are you trying to die before UA? Damn it, screw escaping. The sludge villain pulled himself together. I'm not leaving until I've strangled the both of you. Too bad you'll never get the chance. A much more booming and confident voice thundered, because I am here. Well, Toga is that? Damn you all might. Texas smash. The sudden burst of wind blew away any remnants of the creature, scattering the sludge villain all across the alley. Toga found herself clenching to her friend, who had smartly dug his own legs into the ground to stay firm and still. Even if he was blind, Izuku could sense the sheer mass of power the hero had. All that power, and he's not even using all of it. It was weird. Izuku could see the amount of power the pro held in his arms alone, how he thrusted it forward, how he twisted it in the end. Izuku doubted anyone else could emulate super strength the way the symbol of peace could, and that made Izuku sorta glad. After all, there could only ever be one All Might. H.A. Sorry for not getting here sooner. Notes for the future KIDS. Never chase a slime monster through a sewer. MYMUSCLES barely let him fit. He scooped up the villain in some sort of bottle. Is he bragging about how big he is? Izuku couldn't help but smile. One of the biggest shames he had to live through was never getting to physically see that fearless smile on the #1 hero. It shouldn't be said that public quirk usage is ILLEAGAL, however, because it was clearly self-defense. I want report IT. Just make sure not to make this a habit. Yeah, because people will lose their shit if they saw a blind boy defend himself like any normal human being. Toga muttered irritably. Seems even All Might himself wasn't immune to her ire. Try to get here faster next time, and maybe we won't have to. Toga, really? Okay, I deserve THAT. It's MY duty AFTERALL to protect all life. Rest assured I won't make this mistake again. All Might didn't seem too bothered by Toga's jab, thought the smile and blunt voice would be capable of fooling anybody. Now I must go drop this SLUDGBALL at the police station. Stay. Wait, All Might, I have something I need to ask you. Midoriya escaped his friend's grasp and reached out for the pro. Sorry, no time for autographs, I really have to. I'm blind. This actually got the hero to stop and turn around. His smile became more neutral but also carried a little curiosity in it. When I was younger, I got into an accident. A classmate of mine used his quirk on my eyes and I haven't been able to see anything since. But my quirk came in on the same day. Before then, everyone thought I was quirkless, so no matter what, I've never had a large amount of people believe in me. It was impossible for most people to notice, but All Might was really struggling to stay still. He was fighting the stiffness his body was getting into, but at the same time, his head as well as his heart told him to listen to the young man's story. It's been my dream to be a hero like you, to smile and assure people that things will be all right. To make sure not one soul goes without knowing they will be helped, they will be protected, and that they matter to the world, All Might. Is it possible for someone like me to become a hero? Toga naturally wanted to start running. She didn't trust the expression All Might had on, and she attempted to pull Izuku away as the pro stepped closer. Young man, I'm sure most people right now would tell you no, that it's impossible. What would you know, you sack OF? However, I don't know you. I can only assume you've taken into account for your lack of sight. Of course, my quirk Earthbender allows me to sense the earth around me as well as anything interacting with it. It's how I get around. And a fine quirk on IT's own, I must say. All Might gestured to the slab of concrete Izuku had made. However, a strong quirk cannot make up for skill and ingenuity. A hero cannot be made by power alone. He prepared to launch into the sky. But heroes are always risking their lives, surpassing limitations and hardships all the time. You aim for UA, right? Right, it's the school you went to, so it must be the best. Over there we have a saying, Go beyond plus ultra. I cannot say you can be a hero, but that's because that isn't my choice to make. That is a question you have to ask yourself. When you know the answer, I'll be sure to see you ATUA. The hero left in a gust of wind after that, having safely secured the villain in his pocket. See, I told you so. Toga hugged him. What have I been telling you since we were kids? Okay, you were right, though it does help to be encouraged by the #1 hero as well. Izuku abashed. I don't know. I'm usually good at looking through masks. I can tell when someone hiding something. Really, I didn't hear him lie about anything. Thank goodness, too. He didn't know what he'd do if the #1 hero had to gall to do that to his face. Not lying, but he was not saying something at the same time, and I thought I saw steam come off him before he leapt. Maybe he really had to do something. Being All Might probably means he doesn't have a lot of free time. Whatever, who cares about him? Did you really say that to me? You know what I means. Present time. This year's applicants appear to be quite diverse in quirks, don't you think? A cheery voice said from the dark and shadowy viewing room of UA. The teachers, ranging from Snipe to Midnight, as well as the hybrid animal Principal Nezu. There are those who use speed and superior agility to their advantage. A blue-haired teen ran through the robots like it was paper, while a blonde teen used a large tail to flip and smash. Others, of course, are able to use stealth attacks with reconnaissance. A multi-armed teen formed several eye and ears from his hands. And of course, there are those who are able to apply sheer raw power. The monitor shifted to 2 teens in particular. An explosive blonde doing everything he could to get close and attack, while the other green-haired kid was able to take out multiple targets at once with long-range earth attacks. One skinny blonde in particular was intrigued by the green-haired one. Can we get a name on the short kid? Ah yes, Izuku Midoriya, UA's first blind participant in the hero course exam. Any particular reason? The mouse applied. I ran into him a while back. He and his friend got caught up in one of my fights. The symbol of peace had the kid stuck in his head since that day. Something about that drive reminded him of his younger days. Heck, it reminded him of the current position he was in. He seems to be holding up fairly well. Wait, the kid's blind. Snipe did a spit take. Then why the hell did we let him take the test? He's gonna get himself killed. Now, Snipe, let's not get too hasty. Nezu reassured. Mr. Midoriya has yet to injure himself fighting. In fact, if you look closely, he currently has the highest number of rescue points. The screen showed the green teen launching the foes into the air, though what most would miss is that he would do so right at the moment other participants had their backs turned or were about to be cornered. He's prioritizing civilian safety over fighting. A dreary and sleepy tone spoke up, which came from a man in a black suit and wrapped around a scarf. Rational. But even if he has a way to counter his blindness, that's still going to be a big weakness to overcome. Doesn't everyone have that? Midnight spoke next. You yourself risk serious eye strain from quirk overuse. My quirk is less effective on women, and there's All Might's you know what. She turned to him, no offense. None taken. From what I recall of our encounter, young Midoriya has been blind since the arrival of his quirk, so he has had years to grow into it. The green-haired boy in question sent what could only be described as waves of earth, knocking over a slew of 3-pointers, actually getting the ground to ripple like it was water. He is able to handle himself like any other student. If that's the case, and it's clear by now it's going to be, then we have to treat the kid like any other student, though I believe we're going to have to get creative with the math. Aizawa murmured. I hope Present Mike knows how to handle this. Why would he know? Midnight started to ask. He knows Braille. There's a reason we put him in charge of English. Let's not get too ahead, everyone. After all. The mouse gleefully glared at a big red button that was aptly labeled Release the Kraken. The true test has yet to begin. Okay, I believe that's around 45 if my math is right. It's hard to tell which shapes have which points. He knew that Toga didn't really have the quirk for this type of scenario, but he thought that these things would actually put up more of a fight. It almost felt like almost anything could stand up to these guys, provided you apply enough strength or force against it. Even if she could change her appearance, I doubt it gave her much of an advantage. Why did she have to be so vague about her practical? His train of thought was interrupted by a rumble in the ground. Wait, I'm not the one causing it. What was the cause was in fact a massive, 70-foot mechanical monster that everyone in the surrounding area soon found themselves fleeing. That's supposed to be the zero-pointer. Okay, now this couldn't be just government funding. Somebody was either richer than they let on, or robbed from Fort Knox at some point in their lives. He was actually inclined to believe the latter more. Masses of bodies fled the area, moving right past him as he himself stood still, trying to analyze the scale of the bot. Metal legs at some point ran past him and seemed to slow down, only to run at higher speeds right after. Guess I can't blame them for running away. It isn't worth anything to face it after all. Someone's more likely to lose points if they took it head-on. Izuku began going the other direction, not sure what to think. Again, this felt a bit too easy even for him. Toga's words on them always watching rang in his head, but he couldn't tell what she was trying to infer. Maybe. Help. Uraraka, her voice was in pain and she didn't seem to be moving any time soon. Izuku sensed the piles of ruble on top of her leg. I don't want to die. Izuku didn't even need to hear much else after that, sprinting straight for her without a second thought. Metal legs stood far away without moving, clearly confused on what he was doing. This is either going to be the coolest or last thing I ever do. Hey, are you able to use your quirk on it? He asked without much time to worry about the stress she was in. Yeah, I can, but it's out of my weight limit. I won't be able to affect the gravity that much. No problem, just do what you can and I can take the rest from there. Uraraka didn't know what to think, mostly because at the moment she was confused why the boy current trying to save her life wasn't looking at her while he was talking, but she did as she was told. Okay, I'm going to sling that slab at the robot, and when I do, prepare to use your quirk on yourself as well. Who? Hold ON tight. The boy lifted the slab over his own head and proceeded to punt the girl backwards. Hope she isn't mad. Izuku proceeded to sling the slab at his head. In normal circumstances, I'd be able to lift it fine, but the weight would have brought it in the middle. I should probably fix that. Izuku flew it right at its target, actually making it lean backward, actually trying to use the buildings to retain balance. Still too much trouble for me to just leave well enough alone. Got to try something new. Izuku took a huge breath and began thrusting his arms forward, and if he was splitting two things at once. Izuku found out, quite painfully, his quirk was just as physical as it was mental. In fact, it was probably more so physical. He realized there was a certain ratio to his earth bending to how much he could handle. It fluctuated from time to time, which also extended to how much adrenaline he's on. Also, it took specific movements to move Earth in a particular way. I hope they don't take points away for property damage. He repeated his arm movements again, and again, cracking the pavement beneath the robot, damaged the foundations beneath it before he finally created a canyon to trap the menace before him. Yugs, that was unpleasant. Time's up, little listeners. The exam is over. Guess the heat of the moment really makes time fly. Izuku walked towards Uraraka, who, mostly thanks to metal legs, was able to watch the blind boy take on the zero-pointer from a safe enough distance. Are you all right? I hope I didn't make any of your injuries worse. Oh, of course not. You really helped me out there. Uraraka really got a good look at her two-time savior. He was noticeably shorter than herself. He still had no shoes on, and his big messy hair covered his eyes. What about you? You don't even have a scratch on you. Exactly what were you trying to prove back there? That robot wasn't worth anything, or going as far as to endanger yourself just to show off. Metal legs continued to rant on. Oh, would you shut your pie hole, you pompous jerk? Izuku interrupted. There was a robot about to squish people. I stopped it. End of story. The blind boy helped Uraraka to her feet. You think you're okay to walk? No, I think I need someone to look at my ankle. As the taller boy, known as Tenya Ida, watched on in both shock and irritation. It doesn't make sense. He talks calmly with her and acts more rash and irritant with me. How could you accept such a reckless applicant even if he helped? He thought for a moment. Wait, was that the point? Was there some aspect of the test that I failed to notice? I was just told it was a test. If it was real, I would have helped the others. Clearly, there was more to it than was let on. He couldn't help but stare at the two who were now getting treated by a tiny old lady. and he seemed to have figured it out. Maybe there was much more to learn from the boy, if only he didn't look like a delinquent. So are you sure you're going to be okay? Izuku walked outside with Uraraka by his side, with both given the clearance by the youthful hero. Recovery girl, though Izuku doubted by the sound of her voice she was anything but youthful. A comment that gave him a whack on the head with a cane, though she was quick to heal that too. You're not feeling any discomfort. Of course not, but why are we focusing on that? You're the one that took out that giant. You ran up and threw that rock with a whoosh and then gave a big stomp. So without mortal peril getting in the way, she's naturally peppy. Toga would like her, speaking of. Toga was right outside the gate waiting for him, and unknown to him, she held a very teasing grin once she got a look at Uraraka. Hey Toga, how long have you been waiting for? Not long. Figured you'd get through it no problem, my little Izukun. Are you kidding me? He was like the strongest guy there. He marched right towards the 0-pointer without so much as blinking, I think. Can you even see through your hair? Izuku knew already by Toga's giggling she was dying to tell her. Let me draw it out this time, okay? He whispered. Uraraka, this is my oldest friend Himiko Toga. Toga, this is Uraraka. I stopped her from falling at the entrance. And you saved me from being crushed. Oh really, my Izukun's already got himself a fangirl already. She nudged the boy. Or is there something more going on here? You know how the story about white knights goes. Toga. Relax, I'm just kidding, I would never share. She hugged him possessively. Or would I? She stared at Uraraka intensely. Are you? H-A-H-A-H-A? Seriously, you guys need to learn to loosen up. UA's not going to give you much time to do that once you start. You're assuming that we both got accepted, Toga. Did you save people? Yes. And did you help him? She pointed to the brown-haired girl. Yes, or at least I helped him distract the 0-pointer. Then you're good as gold. Trust me, it'll save you the knots in your stomach. I'm a second year, I know what to expect. Okay, that's actually reassuring. Uraraka sighed in relief. Well, I gotta go, I can't miss my ride home. Hope we get the same class. See ya, they both waved back to her as they made their own way. So you're already surrounding yourself with pretty girls. I'm blind, how am I supposed to know what she looks like? I mean, you already got the lost puppy look down. Will I have to gut a few more faces down the line if they try to claim you? What about that last bit about sharing? Oh, now you're open to it. I didn't take you for a pervert. Toga. Bakugo Katsuki was supposed to be the best. The day his quirk came should have cemented that fact. A powerful, versatile, and most of all, deadly quirk born from two useless quirks. Out of everyone from his shitty neighborhood, in his shitty school, in his shitty family, in an endless sea of shitty extras, he was the only one with any noticeable potential, and the day his quirk came in, everyone knew it. So why, for the past 10 years, did everyone pretend like they didn't see him as the next All Might for about 5 minutes? Hell, half the time people seemed to forget who exactly they were talking to most of the time. Sure, Bakugo had his lackeys that followed him around, but it wasn't the blind loyalty that was clearly there back in elementary. Those idiots actually had the insane idea that they were on equal ground, and even had the gall to laugh at his expense once in a while. Of course they would. Who could resist getting a cheap shot at the strongest guy in class when he hardly used his quirk anymore? The teachers, for some odd reason, actually told him to stop setting fire to the students whenever they didn't show the proper respect to him. The same teachers that put him on the pedestal that he rightfully deserved to be on. Now, for some reason, he was treated like every other extra that he was forced to endure. Did Deku's accident mean so much? The kid everybody was on board for ignoring and beating up when he was quirkless. The same Deku that disappeared and came back without so much as a peep from any of their classmates. It was hard enough to stomach it at home, where the old hag would berate him for hours on end whenever his thoughts got dark, towards his one-time acquaintance punching bag. His old man, even the quiet, calm, bordering on doormat dad, would give him grief over his behavioral problems. Damn them. It only added to his origin story even more. A world trying to deny his destiny, doing everything they can to push him down and prevent his greatness from growing. And thanks to the efforts of one quirkless, Annoying, extra that he would be glad to be rid of. Funny how Deku became the villain in his story. The nerd became even worse, the worthless. He became a drag, like chewed-up bubblegum underneath his shoe. Whatever, damn nerd. Today was the last day he ever had to think about Deku before heading towards his future. The UA test results finally came in, and Bakugo couldn't think of a better time for it to come. Finally, after today, he'd finally be able to let loose and show the world what a true hero looked like. No more of old Hag's complaints of quirk use, and no more fear of that loser taking it all away. Right, he ripped open and got a little hologram disc. The moment it landed, the hologram started, revealing the perfect person to give the news, All Might. BOYAH, I am here as a projection. Ha, take that, old hag. You may have slowed me down, but even All Might can see the future when it's in front of him. Young Bakugo, you have set quite the record for yourself. A perfect score on the written test, but I'm sure that's not what you're waiting to hear about. Yeah, even All Might knew this was a formality. Just get to the damn good part. And what appears to be a first for UA history, you've passed your practical exams solely on villain points alone. With sheer iron will and ferocious power, you gained a grand total of 77 points. With the second highest score, you've become a shoo-in for UA for sure. Ha, he left little doubt about it, just like a true hero sure. The next stepping stone starts right, 2ND, what the fuck do you mean second? Welcome Katsuki Bakugo, UA is now your hero academia. Fuck you. Brat, you better keep it down before I call the Midoriyas. SCRFU, damn IT. Also one of the worst things within the past 10 years, he couldn't toss his mother's more colorful language right back her, lest he pay the consequences. And somehow, the old hag always seemed to know when he was insulting her. And stop calling me hag, you little bitch. Only when you stop being one. Katsuki. Fine. Damn it, meanwhile at the Midoriya household. Hey Izuku, what's with the weird smile you have? The voice of his mother said. Next to her was a familiar face, or vice depending on who you were, was the pro-hero Vlad King, and across from him was his foster daughter, Toga Himiko. All four of them were currently enjoying Izuku's favorite dish of katsudon in celebration of his acceptance to UA. You've hardly touched your food. Something on your mind? Not really. Just got a funny feeling a certain bomb expert isn't too happy right at this moment. Knowing what he was referring to, the whole table shared a laugh. Now, you're sure you didn't pull anything funny with my test results, Kansan? Of course not. I wouldn't insult Himiko's favorite person in the world by doing that. The blood hero said heartily. The school was already made aware of our connection, so I wasn't on the panel of judges for your final score. Though that also means you're not in my class this year, limiting favoritism and all. Good, last thing I'd want to be is pitied, so I'm glad the blind thing's mostly going to be a non-issue. Midoriya chuckled. Even if we didn't know each other, I doubt you'd be in 1B. Aizawa always gets the more troublesome students, and a blind kid with a quirk that can level an entire building, in his words, has problem child written all over it. Really, little ol' me cause any problems. What could ever give you that idea? He faked his innocence. So I'm the problem child while daddy's girl over here gets a free pass. Toga responded with a small bite to the cheek that looked like a kiss to anyone watching, which, and nobody but Toga knew this, Izuku secretly preferred. Special circumstances and all. I'm the only blood hero in the staff, so some exceptions had to be made. Yeah, Izu-kun, it's nothing you have to worry your little head about. Besides, I know how difficult and hard you like to make things. She was beyond subtly at this point, and for the most part, everyone at the table was used to it. I'm just going to pretend that was a rock pun and not at all an indicator to how not close our clearly platonic relationship has grown. I'm aware of how close you two are. I'm just making sure you're using protection. That got a spit take out of the green lad. WHAA, no, we haven't done anything like that yet. Oh, yet. His own mother was now against him. Truly, Izuku walks this path alone. I suppose I can expect a few grandkids after Himiko's graduation. You know, Kansan, if you push for the dorm rooms a little more, I think we can push that date a little faster for Mamadoriya. Nah, I'm a patient man. I can wait a few more years. Why are we talking like this is a for sure thing? Izuku got nothing but silence in respond. If you're looking at me funny, just remember who you're doing it to. Don't worry about it, Izuku. Vlad voiced in, saving him from more awkwardness. The first, second, and third years don't have much interaction with each other, so your PDA is going to be confined to any downtime you can muster after school. There's always the lunch period, Izuku. Are you ever going to let this go? Just think about it. Do you want less hugs and cuddles? The, every other day during lunch. Ha knew it. The first day of the rest of his life. Toga had her share of stories of this place, mainly ones involving a blue-haired girl crashing into her on the first day and bumping into a naked blonde kid, but the excitement of officially entering the refined establishment couldn't compete with any of that. Get your feet off this desk, UDELIQENT. It's a huge DISHONNOR to those that have come before US. Fuck you for EYES. Now if only they'd shut up for a single second. Toga had walked him to his class on the first day, 1A as Vlad King said. Soon as he entered the room, the first thing he was greeted to was a hearty helping of Bakugo screaming, followed by a pinch of metal legs' uptight rudeness. Times like these made him wish he still went to school alone. I believe we've gotten off on the wrong foot. I'll restart. I am Ida Tenya from Somne Academy. Somne, huh? You some kind of fucking elitist. I'd shove a stick up your ass, but the one you have is already so far up. You dare talk about my posterior so crassly. Are you even trying to become a hero? Suddenly, the attention of the class turned solely to him. He could feel the intense glare of Bakugo even if he couldn't see it. You there? You're the one who took out the 0-pointer. Great. Now Bakugo was guaranteed to never leave him alone. I'm Ida. The taller teen made his way towards him. Those, for some odd reason, Midoriya saw he moved like all of his joints were glued together, making each step almost mechanical-like. Yeah, I heard everything you said, Robot Jones. I'm Izuku Midoriya. He didn't want to deal with this now. Last thing he wanted was attention, especially on the first day. If you're about to give me a hard time about what happened then. I must apologize for my actions. You clearly saw the true purpose of the exams that I failed to notice. I admit, as a student, you are far superior to me. Man, was it tempting to make a blind joke right now, but the guy was being sincere if a little weirdly intense. Besides, he clearly wasn't falling for any of Bakugo's bullshit, so that was definitely a plus in his book. Thanks. Let's just both agree to do better in the future. A simple nod was all that was needed, and Izuku proceeded to his desk, at least until he was stopped by the same guy that just made up with him not even a minute ago. Buddy, I need to set my stuff down. Midoriya, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the dress code was made abundantly clear. He pointed to his shoeless feet that now everyone noticed. I wish to be friends with you, but I cannot in good conscience allow you to take a step further without proper footwear. Okay, now it's time to have some fun. What? I forgot my shoes. This sent Ida back in shock. Oh man, I can't believe it. I'm going to get kicked out on my first day just for my shoelessness. Why must life be so cruel? Not to worry, Midoriya. I'm sure if we explain things to the teacher, we can. He stopped at the sound of chuckling. Midoriya. PFFTT, ha 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 ha, ha. Thanks for that, buddy. You're going to be a riot to keep around. He plopped himself down on a random desk. Oh, and don't worry about it. I'm not required to wear shoes at all. Okay. Ida was lost, as was the rest of the class. Exactly what the heck just happened? Was this kid pissed off or not? At least with Bakugo, it was made clear what he was thinking. This shaggy-haired shorty, not so much. Is this a good time to come in now? Uraraka came in having been waiting by the door since the conversation started. Or is it still too awkward? Most of 1A's eyes now rested on her. Or did I just make it awkward? Please tell I didn't make it awkward. She pouted. Izuku wanted to say something to reassure the shaking girl, but he was too occupied with what was behind her or who. The image wasn't clear, one of the few downsides to his seismic sense, but the outline had a face. Hey, Uraraka, is that a log or a giant slug behind you? What are you? Uraraka turned around and freaked out to the point of activating her quirk and floating in the air. everyone else either wondering how they failed to see that, or how Midoriya was the only one that managed to see it. Right outside the hallway, a fully grown man, presumably a homeless hobo if you asked anyone at the moment, was wrapped in a yellow sleeping bag and looked at everyone as if he wasn't the one creepily eyeing over the classroom to the point where you might have to call the police. Not helped by the fact he reacted to the attention by taking a sip out of a juice pouch he had tucked away. If you're here to socialize, then I suggest you get out now. Everyone, save Midoriya, responded with collective sweat drops while the resident green bean held his chuckles in. It took all of you 8 seconds to shut up. If I were a villain, you'd all be dead. He stood up and unzipped himself, transforming from a sleepy caterpillar to a sleepy teacher who'd look like he rather search for the nearest bed than actually listen to anybody. I'm Shouta Aizawa. I'm the homeroom teacher. What? Too loud? The scruffy man muttered before pulling out a small blue outfit. Put these on, head outside, we're having a little field day. He left the room without another word. Is that man serious? Iida didn't want to believe it, not even a full 10 minutes of class and his expectations have already fallen flatter than a pancake. What was the point of living by high standards if they're wasted in moments like this? Oh yeah, that guy definitely wasn't lying. Midoriya walked out. I would have known if he was. Oh well, best not get the old hobo more angry. A few snickers brought much-needed levity to the room, allowing the others to follow suit. Iida, on the other hand, walked far behind everyone else, not sure what to make of the student he was so eager to apologize to just a minute ago. He doesn't seem to be serious at all about this. And yet his conviction at the entrance exam showed a totally different side to the green-haired one. Just what kind of man are you, Midoriya? Once he was out of the teen's gaze, though, Midoriya felt someone grab his arm and he didn't need a voice to know who it was. Really, Bakugo? Already trying to rack up an assault charge? Why don't you just wait until we head to the bathroom? That'll look really good on a police report. Tell me how you cheated. Bakugo's voice was weirdly calm. There was clear malice and hatred, but for him not yell at him was just so out of character. That's the only conceivable way your blind, quirkless ass could have gotten in. I've told you this before, Bakugo. I haven't been quirkless in years, or have those explosions made you deaf? Because that would be weirdly fitting. Damn that sense of humor, Deku. If you weren't QRKLESS, then why haven't you? Why haven't I what, shown you? He caught him off. Because we're such good friends, right? Because you aren't the asshole that almost ruined my life. Because you aren't the reason why I can never see Himi-chan's face, the face of the one I love the most. Bakugo let go. You have a clean slate now. Are you really going to be so petty and mess it up? Because that's a show I'd kill to watch. Aizawa wished he was never in this position. There was only 2 moments in his life he wished he could undo, and oddly enough, one of them wasn't getting a better hero alias. There was a reason he became an underground hero. No press to adhere to. Very few, if any, fans to avoid while shopping, and the hours were more flexible than any other hero position. He could bust all the drug dealers and human traffickers he could at night, and use the entirety of the morning and afternoon to get that much deserved, all too precious sleep, and dump all the legalities to his secretary at his agency. Of course, right when he thought he could get through life with manageable trials, Midnight had to swoop in and file that damn teaching recommendation to Nezu without his consent 5 years ago. And of course the little mouse bear abomination to nature approved it before he could withdraw and explain. Suddenly, his schedule had to adhere to assignment grading, field trips, training, PTA meetings, stuff he didn't even like as a kid. At least he had the least amount of paperwork to deal with out of all the teachers, which allowed him to catch up on sleep whenever possible, though that was mainly out of his tendency to expel students that didn't have any potential. Although, the more he thought about it, making him 1A's teacher did make sense. The ability to cancel out quirks was too valuable in a school full of some of the most powerful kids in the country. Nobody would dare cross the line with him in charge. Though to be honest, some days, even that didn't make things worth it. He knew he was in for a long year during that entrance exam. Despite his distaste for how it was executed, this year at least a few gems were able to slip through the cracks where they normally wouldn't be able to. Koji Koda and Mizo Shoji were among those, the former utilizing small rodents to disable bots from the inside as he hid from everyone else, and the latter, despite having a superior physical advantage to most, used his quick mainly for scouting and information gathering. Those like Toru Hagakure, despite having no physical advantage, was able to make the most of her invisibility and sneak up on the machines. Even ones like Mainta, who had a clear history of being a peeping Tom, trapped a good chunk of the robots by using his small stature to his advantage. It reassured the teacher that there was some hope for the future. Of course, there were those that would have stood out no matter what they did during the entrance exam, which meant flashy, and more importantly, dangerous quirks. Most would assume that the more powerful the quirk, the better the hero would be. A naive way of thinking. Honestly, it was more difficult to work with anyone with powerful quirk, because if not directed properly, they could easily have the next big villain in the making. This line of thinking mainly applied to three specific individuals: Shota Todoroki, Katsuki Bakugo, and Izuku Midoriya. Shota was undoubtedly powerful, which most would assume given his parentage, which of course to Aizawa meant Jack in the long run. Unlike his father, who gave off a stern, vicious, yet tactical heroic persona, the only thing Aizawa could observe from the youngest son of the number 2 hero was coldness. Empty, bitter coldness, and the teacher highly doubted that his half-cold, half-hot quirk was to blame for that. Bakugo Katsuki, on the other hand, was a little bundle of rage incarnate. As his quirk's namesake, he seemed to be set off by even the breathing of the other classmates. All signs of an egomaniac and possible spoiling at a young age. A prime example of a Aizawa case, as in, he was placed in his class mainly to shut off his quirk given his trigger-happy tendency. If he didn't see the exam footage and witness the bite to the teen's bark, he wouldn't have even bothered with the hot head. Then there was a special case. Izuku Midoriya. From the little he gathered from the beginning of class, he was sarcastic, mainly making jokes and insults to make himself laugh rather than anyone else. He also tended to fade away in a crowd, which was helped by his plain appearance and short stature. And given how he was the only one that noticed him in the hallway, he was weirdly observant for a blind guy. A quirk assessment test. The class in unison cried in disbelief. Good, he was catching them off guard. They think a faulty entrance exam secured their futures. Ha, not in his book. Yes, long jump, 50-meter dash, all the standard physical tests you no doubt excelled in. A few glands of sweat fall from Mainta and Toru, which actually made identifying where her eyes were at a little easier. The Board of Education thinks it's doing everyone a favor by pretending we're all created equally and deny those with power to succeed. A fierce grin and a stubborn frown appeared on both Bakugo and Midoriya respectively. It's not rational, and someday it's going to bite them back when they least expect it. Hard, Midoriya. From the background, the green-haired child walked forward, his eyes still covered, which Aizawa guesses was to prevent anyone else from learning he was blind. Practical in his opinion, he himself was fortunate the goggles he wore kept most criminals from knowing when his quirk was active. You had the highest score in the entrance exam. A few muttered in shock. Bakugo looked like he just busted a blood vessel. What's the farthest you can throw this? He tossed a ball in his direction, mainly to see what he would do. Midoriya turned his direction and stomped on the ground, encasing the ball in a pile of dirt he uprooted from the ground. Looks like the kid was going the extra mile to keep his lack of sight hidden. Might as well let him. I've been told around 30 meters. A few snickered at the lowness. A bit underwhelming. Why don't we add your quirk into the mix? He directed him to a small circle facing the field. Do whatever you need to, but stay in the circle. Midoriya laughed. Yeah, tell that to the next blind guy. He stayed perfectly still, wrapping the ball in dirt till it was completely encased before letting it fall to the ground. The confusion from the class was quick, but very clear. That instantly changed the moment Midoriya took a step back, before taking a giant stomp forward, swinging his arms upward. The ground shook before what looked an iceberg of dirt erupted, sending the ball sky-high. Wow, the little dude packs a punch, that's so mainly. The redhead student Ajiro Kirishima shouted excitedly. No wonder he got one place in the exam. That was Denki Kaminari. Oh man, I already gotta compete with this monster. Mainta. And while the entire class gawked at the display like a bunch of morons, none were able to see what Midoriya did next. As the ball continued its descent, he reeled his arm back before pushing it forward, making the ball shoot from its rocky prison like a pistol. So that's why he placed it in rock. Not only was he able to keep track of it, he was able to double its momentum for a further distance. Aizawa got excited, though he made sure to show it through a small smile that was easily hidden by his scarf, though the only kid who could have possibly noticed was blind. This kid. Damn it, Deku, you bastard. Tell me where you got THAT quirk, you damn nerd. Bakugo sprinted straight towards Midoriya, and Aizawa was prepared to use his capture tape if Bakugo didn't fall on his face. Wah! He found his foot in a small ditch, and his eyes widened as if he solved the greatest mystery on Earth. You're the one that keeps. Ha, that never stops being funny. Great, 2 students with a history, yep. Despite how impressive Midoriya was, he still wasn't going to be less of a problem child. I suggest you get back to your spot. His eyes lit up red as his hair and scarf rose. It's not a good idea to make me use my quirk for long periods of time. I get serious dry eye. Too bad, that sounds like an amazing quirk. The class said all together except for Bakugo, still looking like he wanted to commit murder. I don't know what you two have against each other, and frankly, I don't care. You want to be a hero, then stop acting like a wild animal or I'm bumping you to General Ed. Bakugo backed off, and Midoriya couldn't have looked any more pleased with the outcome. A story for another time, most likely. And Midoriya, 950 meters. Midoriya gave a small smile of acknowledgement before rejoining the call. A few of the others crowed him like a school of fish with praise and such. As I was saying before I was interrupted, this is the best was to judge your potential. Only by giving it everything you got can you even hope to be called a hero someday. All right, this is what I'm talking about, using our quirks without restraint. Hanta Zero yelled out, this is going to be so much fun. Mina Ashido joined in, time to shatter some delusions. Fun, you think you'll be able to relax and hang out at the local McDonald's. His smile was clearly shown, and it sent shivers down anyone who dared look his way. Okay then, let's make things more interesting. Whoever has the lowest score by the end will be deemed without potential, and will be expelled immediately. How fun does that sound? You can't do that. We just got here. That totally isn't fair. Ochako Uraraka complained. Fair. You're training to save lives and fight villains for a living, and you're complaining about a little test being unfair. The round-faced girl looked guilty after that. Hurricanes, tornadoes, random villain attacks, even random acts of fate that leave one dead or scared for life. Midoriya seemed very invested in that last part, so that probably meant his blindness wasn't a biological issue. Unfortunate, but at least that meant he had his head screwed on tighter than most of the class. The whole world is full of unfairness, and it's a hero's duty to combat it. That's why you all need to go beyond, plus ultra style. The uneasiness was expected, but it wasn't any less palpable. It was like most of the class finally realized, oh shit, being a hero is going to be harder than we thought. The only ones who weren't visibly affected by this were Momo Yaoros, who probably didn't take the threat too seriously, Bakugo and Todoroki, who seemed more than confident enough in their own abilities, and Midoriya, who he couldn't really tell because of the whole eye coverage thing. Well, ready or not, the trial by fire had begun. Welcome to UA High. Hope you survive the experience. Midoriya stayed pretty far back as the rest gathered around the 50-meter dash, everyone excited to see everyone's quirks up close. For obvious reasons, Midoriya decided there was no point to this, especially when he could get a clear picture of what's happening no matter where he was. Come on, Deku, you're going to miss everything. Uraraka lightly shook him and tried to drag him. It is okay for me to call you Deku, right? Because Bakugo. Don't worry, if I say you're okay, you're okay. Little old gunpowder doesn't scare me, sticks and stones and all that. He floated a rock to her hand, and I have plenty of stones to toss around. Uraraka nodded at this and turned her attention back towards the first test, leaving Izuku all by his lonesome. At least as alone as he could be. I take it you find pleasure in solitude. A deep voice cut him off, and Midoriya had to tilt his head a little because the guy next to him looked like he had a giant bird sitting where his head should be. Sorta. I've really only had a small circle of friends before this. Wait, if Toga was his girlfriend, then did that mean he had no friends now? Besides, I'd find it better when I catch people by surprise, so I don't mind when I blend into the background. I'll make my mark soon enough. You show tremendous power in both the entrance exam and the ball throw, and believe you haven't left an impression. The bird guy, Takami, asked in disbelief. If I'm going to be the best, I can't show all my cards early. He confidently laughed as he observed the competition. Iida and someone else, Midoriya assumed it was a girl, took a running position. At least Iida did. The girl looked like she was crouching. What's she doing? Given her appearance, I say she's just giving into her natural instincts. Oh, another mutant-type quirk. Back when he thought he would be quirkless, he did everything he could to learn more and more about quirks, even going as far as to write whatever he knew in his own notebook, though once his lack of sight set in, that avid fascination died a lot. But he had his own quirk to obsess over, so it seemed like a fair enough trade-off. Even so, that natural curiosity never really died, so in moments like this, it was a real shame he couldn't truly appreciate the unique beauty of another's quirk. Whoa, he's fast. Guess that's what the metal in Iida's legs was for, some sort of speed enhancement like an engine. It's too bad the course wasn't longer. I couldn't run long enough to shift to my highest gear. He heard Iida tell himself mostly. The rest of the runners went by pretty quickly. Uraraka's quirk, which apparently let her control gravity to some extent, used it to lighten her clothes as much as possible, though he figured it might have been better if she just used it on herself and just launch herself forward. Then there was the French-sounding guy from the entrance exam who he could only detect for about half of his run, since he used his quirk to blast himself off the ground, until he fell halfway through. Then there was his opponent, who was too easy to detect given how she seemed to pass her feet through the ground itself. And finally, there was him and Bakugo, who growled as they both took their place. Roll over and die, Deku. So what if you got a quirk? It's nothing compared to mine. My quirk can practically do anything, and all you can do is sling dirt around. Ha, give me a break. Of course something so pathetic belongs to you. You're less than dirt, less than any of these extras. You're Deku, and you'll begin. Midoriya leapt forward, creating what looked like waves of dirt underneath his feet, and proceeded to gain more and more traction. Bakugo, completely caught off guard by the green child's lack of response, stood still for a full second before angrily propelling himself forward, using his explosions to gather more and more speed, though because of that delay, he remained firmly behind the blind lad. Midoriya, 3-5 seconds, Bakugo, 4-9. Damn it! Bakugo refrained himself from attacking again, but his loud mouth remained as uncouth as ever. Don't think that this means you're better than me, Deku. If that old hag hadn't been holding me back all these years, I would have blown you to bits. You know, for a hero in training, you sure talk about death a lot. Tell me, when was the last time you ever heard All Might talk about killing? When exactly have you ever hear him say, I am here to kill you all? Doesn't exactly scream symbol of peace, but what do I know? Nothing, you don't know nothing, you bastard. Bakugo didn't even answer his question, so this was either denial at its finest, or he was that big of an idiot. And don't think I'm doing you a favor by not saying anything about you-know-what. Blind or not, you're just as worthless as you've always been, so it doesn't matter either way. So you're saying that you don't mind if I tell people whole story? Bakugo froze for a second before returning to normal. So what? I'm going to blow everyone else out of the water by graduation, so like I said, it doesn't matter either way. Bakugo began walking away, but Midoriya still had more to say. You know, despite all the heartache and pain I've endured, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm curious. What exactly do you have in your life besides all that empty hatred and yelling? What makes you so happy to be alive? The thought of you never leaving the ditch that day, Bakugo said without hesitation or remorse. Midoriya didn't show any hurt or discomfort at this statement, just acceptance and a little disappointment, like I expected anything else. Meanwhile, Aizawa watched them and listened, because he was the only one close enough to hear them, as the rest of the class wondered when the next test was going to start. Did they seriously forget they're in the middle of a test? The rest of the tests went by pretty uneventfully. Shoji dominated the grip test, making due to having more than one arm, though Midoriya was able to come in at a close second by using clumsily made but effective arms made from rock. Long jump, endurance run, and side steps were a breeze to get through, even the sit-ups. Her was able to ease the pain by forcing his quirk to support his body. Really, the only one they could say that giving him decent competition was Todoroki, who blasted through the test mostly by freezing everything within his ice. The only test that completely surpassed his own was Uraraka's ball throw, though when one's score is infinity, there's only so much one can do. Okay, I've tallied all the scores. It's pointless to hand them out, so I'm just going to show them to you. A hologram showed everything, and everything eagerly gathered around to see where they placed. While everyone either gasped in surprise or sighed in disappointment, Midoriya could only hope someone would point out where he was on the chart. Congratulations on third place, Deku. Uraraka fortunately told him before her could ask. Though to be honest, I was hoping you'd get first. You're really amazing. You practically trampled everyone during the test. Thanks, now I know where I am. All there's left to do is move forward from there. And from the back of the class, Bakugo shook violently, obvious unhappy with his results. Despite his earlier complaints, Bakugo really did suffer from lack of quirk use. Often during the test, where he had to use his quirk for extended periods of time, he would reel back for moments at a time in pain, probably because his arms hadn't had the time to adapt to repeated explosions in such a small amount of time. The only one shaking more than him was the only other student shorter than him, Minta, though Midoriya felt more pity for him than Bakugo. No, there's so many hot girls in this class. And that pity immediately died. Oh, by the way, no one's getting expelled. What were the thoughts of every student? It was just a rational deception to bring out your best. And with that line, Midoriya suddenly had a newfound respect for his teacher, not only because he clearly enjoyed trolling the class as much as he did, but because he knew for a fact now he suddenly took a 180 on what he said earlier. Not only did Toga already tell him about Eraserhead's expulsions, but his heartbeat when he made his earlier threat did not flutter a single beat when he did. Well, of course it was a test. The naivety of the tall girl in a ponytail, Yorozo, said in confidence. I thought it was obvious. Guess I should have said something. Boy, did he want to tell her the truth just to get everyone to freak out, but his gut told him it was probably best to let them live in ignorance for now. WOOOHOO. Skin-tight bodysuits, here I come. Minta shouted only to find himself in a sinkhole. Hey, what the? He was soon neck-deep. What's happened? He disappeared and everyone knew who to turn to. What, you mean you wanted to hear the tired rants of Pervy's wet dreams? No one really had an argument, and the girl with the long earlobes silent thanked him for his actions. Midoriya, bring him back up and try not to kill your classmates. Aizawa demanded. He has enough air for an hour. Midoriya. Fine, one stomp, and the ground spat the grape-headed midget out like chewed gum. He would have been able to dig himself out. Oh, thank. UA has a strict policy on harassment. Do anything remotely deviant, and I'll finish what Midoriya started. Got it. Got it. The grapist didn't know what was scarier, the way the teacher looked like he wanted to strangle him in his scarf, or how Midoriya could bury him alive without so much as lifting a finger. Why, you monsters? That's all for today. Pick up the syllabus in the classroom. Tomorrow is when the real fun begins. I just can't believe he had the gall to lie above all things. Ida walked beside Izuku as they left the building. I realize the teachers here have a lot more freedom to do what they want here, but outright lying is immoral. You've lived a sheltered life, haven't you? Izuku guessed. It wasn't that bad. As long as we're giving it 100% and then some, then there's nothing to worry about. I suppose. Ida didn't seem completely convinced. I guess being kept on our toes is just part of the curriculum. Doesn't mean I approve. Hey, wait up, you guys. Uraraka ran with utmost peppiest in her step. That was quite the first day, Deku. Deku, the one person not up to date on the nickname. Isn't that what Bakugo called Midoriya? Infinity Girl, how can you insult your friends so blatantly like that? She didn't know what it meant when she first heard it. She thought it was a shorter version of Dekaru, when originally it was an alternate version of the Kajin of my name, meaning useless. And you're fine when she calls you that. I'm assuming she's not calling me useless every time she says it, right? The brown-haired girl nodded. Who cares what that loud mouth says? From this day forth, Deku means you can do it. Uraraka blushed with a smile, happy to know her little mistake had become such a positive experience for her short friend. Wait, Infinity Girl. Well, that's what everyone else was calling you because of the ball throw. Iida explained himself. Would have gone for Twinkle Toes myself. Midoriya already knew what they were going to say next. Because her quirk makes her pretty light on her feet, I'd say in a fight she might have the advantage against me. Really, Uraraka's whole face now resembled an apple. But you're so strong and cool. All I can see my quirk being good for is rescue work. Don't count yourself so sort, Infinity Girl. Iida eagerly waved his hands around. There's a lot of combat advantages to your quirk. All you have to do is touch somebody and they'd have nowhere to go. What about you? You'd probably be so fast that villains probably wouldn't be able to see you coming. Izuku smiled at the two of them, getting a familiar feeling back when he first met Toga, before those feelings became what they are now. That genuine kindness and friendship that should have been easy, even before he gained a quirk. Even back then, Bakugo never sought friends as much as a cheer posse. It was a whole other experience than kindergarten. I know, right? Himiko walked up from behind and held him in the tightest of hugs. Weird being around nice people for a chain. Trust me, it's okay to get used to it. She turned her attention to his new friends. Uraraka-san, I hope you've thought about my offer. Offer what do? Uraraka flustered immediately. Wait, you were serious about? That never gets old. She turned to the glasses wearing teen. Already latched on to someone else. Didn't think you were into the nerdy type, but what do I know? Wait. Excuse me, miss. Iida didn't know what to make at the sight of what appeared to be one of their senpais cradling his classmate while making very suggestive indications towards another. Himiko, Toga, Tenya, Iida, Midoriya quickly summarized. So you two are already previously acquainted with each other. Oh, we're way past acquaintances. We've grown way closer than that. She licked Izuku's cheek. Birthday suit close. WHAAA. She's kidding. Midoriya reassured. Mostly, I've known her since we were 4 and we started dating for about a year. Oh, didn't know all those kisses and cuddling between them was just casual friend stuff. Toga pouted. I've waited over a decade and you've barely gave me a nickname, Izukun. So it's a childhood romance story. Uraraka fawned over. Oh, that's so sweet. As nice as this all is, aren't you afraid this'll get in the way of your studies? Iida asked. It would be best to have as little distraction as possible. If having someone who loves you more than life itself is a distraction, then I don't want to keep on living. Himiko flatly stated. Realizing he might have crossed something, he backtracked. So sorry about that. I didn't mean to offend. It's all right. If you were trying to offend me, I would have sucked you dry. No one had any response to that sentence. It's related to her quirk. Sorry she says stuff like that. Is she like this all the time? Yes. You know you love it, Izukun. Yes. The next day at UA couldn't have come fast enough for the first-year hero course students. Or at least, that was the initial thought they all had until after homeroom, when they realized the downside to going to hero school. Aside from the specific courses it offered, nothing made it more different than any other high school out there. In fact, if the teachers weren't in costume, in the likely scenario the school went under attack or a situation outside of school called for a specific hero among the staff, you wouldn't even be able to tell that all these teachers were pro-heroes, since they took their respective classes rather seriously. It was especially hard on Izuku, who couldn't even enjoy the novelty of hero teachers as much as everyone else due to his lack of sight, which became especially grating during present Mike's English class. Come on, little listeners, who here can detect the correct sentence structure? Midoriya loved listening the radio host's show and podcasts, but even his loud and energetic personality couldn't save them from how actually boring the lesson was. Come on. It was enough of a pain learning English the first time around. I thought I left this behind me. One of the first difficulties the green-haired lad had to face with his blindness was how he was going to get educated. The solution was simple: learn how to read Braille. The problem was that the Japanese alphabet didn't translate to the alternate style so well, so he spent about a year and a half learning how to speak and recognize English. It was hard to commit to memory at first, considering he couldn't write down anything in his notebooks, but constantly hearing the lessons on loop eventually paid off. It was another 2 years before he mastered Braille, but once he did, he swore to never take for granted note-taking again, which was something he found a little more fun than when he could see. "Hey, Deku," Achako asked him as they walked towards lunch. "I forgot to ask this earlier, but why do you always have slabs of stone near your desk?" "That's just how I take notes." Technically not lying, it was how he took notes, he just left out the part where he wrote it down in Braille. "When I was little, it was how I kept practice with my quirk without straining my body too much, focusing on making more detailed structures and shapes rather than powerful attacks. Guess it also helps that you can float them without any trouble." "True, but it only works on Earth." "You can float anything, regardless of what it's made of." The brown-haired girl blushed at the compliment as the two headed towards the lunchroom, making their way towards Ida, having a nice bowl of beef stew for his meal. "So, tell me I'm not alone in thinking that classes are way less fun than I thought it'd be." "UA is of the highest caliber. I wasn't expecting anything less than hard work and discipline." The spectacled teen answered honestly, if stiffly. "Of course you'd like it, Ida. You have the glasses and everything. This place was made for people like you." "What does wearing glasses have to do with anything?" "You don't pull any punches, do you, twinkle toes?" Midoriya stated, then pausing. "Heads up goes, I'm about to be ambushed in 3, 2, 1. Izukun." Himiko trampled over the short lad, promptly inserting herself into the group before any objections could be made. "You remember what you promised me, and I'm not leaving until I get my fix." Yeah, just get it over with. My dignity can stay intact for so long." The next thing he knew, his head was making close contact with the tall blonde's chest, and Izuku was grateful that he couldn't see himself get embarrassed in front of the only two friends he somehow managed to make in this place. We like to openly express our affection for each other. Obviously, one does it more than the other. Hey, most people have trouble finding someone like that at all, so count yourself lucky. Achako smiled at the odd couple. In spite of the teasing, at least she hopes it's just teasing, she found the open affection endearing. Made her hope for something similar one day. "Toga-san, what's your quirk if you don't mind me asking?" "Not at all. Before it was a source of shame, but after meeting Izuku and spending a year at UA, it was now her main source of pride. My quirk is transform. All I have to do is drink a sample of someone's blood and I can become that person. The time limit is dependent on how much blood I drink." She gave a smile that showed off her fangs, making her look all the more cat-like. "That sounds like an amazing quirk." Ida complimented, his hand waving in the air like he just didn't care. "Think about all the infiltrations and criminal activities you could infiltrate with such a power. Yeah, perfect for an underground hero, but I've been trying to focus on more physical applications." Without warning, her form changed. A white, waxy goop covered her body before it shrank in size and became an identical twin to the boy next to her. "I can transform at will without trouble into people whose blood I've drank for long periods of time." Even her voice was the same as Izuku's. "And since you're childhood friends." Achako connected the dots while she and Ida's eyes were kept wide, slightly freaking out. "Don't worry, I don't mind. I just find it freaky whenever I sense two of me in the same room." The blind boy continued. "We think she might be able to use other people's quirks in other forms, but so far, no luck." "It's only a matter of time, Izukun. Then I'll be there to rock your world." Himiko truly held no shame, letting the goop slide off her body, making her assets a whole lot more noticeable. And of course, I do mean both in hero work and in. You wouldn't happen to have some insight in what heroics will have for us. Ida changed the subject, not wanting to listen to his senpai's innuendos, neither correct said girl in doing so. "Our first class is today, and we're all curious on what awaits us." "Oh, now that would be telling, and I wouldn't be a good student or friend if I spilled the beans early." Toga laughed, "But in all seriousness, I don't know. Each teacher in each class for each year is different. Last year, we started off with a simple hostage scenario, but since you have Aizawa as your homeroom teacher, you should expect something a little less conventional." "I see now." Ida nodded. They've modeled the curriculum in such a way to make it unexpected. Well, yeah, Izuku agreed, wiping the goo off himself. Heroes are expected to handle almost any situation at any given time. So expect the unexpected and push on through. Achako cheered, raising a fist in the air. Come on, guys, who's up for a plus ultra? With lunch going fairly well after that, the 3 first years felt more than ready to tackle their first heroics class. In fact, pretty much everyone was in a state of ecstasy once it was revealed who it was that would be teaching them. I am here, coming through the door like a hero. The symbol of peace himself ran through the door in full hero gear, with his cape somehow flapping as if he were flying. Only Izuku would know that he had spent about 3 minutes beforehand outside in the hallway setting up a fan from a distance to get that effect. Is that All Might? The rumors were true. Isn't that his Silver Age costume? I'm getting goosebumps, this is so retro. Midoriya, keeping himself in check, reserved to only smile widely as their new teacher walked awkwardly into the room as if every step he made was some sort of heroic posture. It was a bit cheesy and more than laughable, but the sheer coolness of All Might himself outweighed any of that any day. Even Bakugo, for all the bitterness he held inside, could help but give a grin, albeit a feral, killer grin. Welcome, aspiring heroes, to the foundational and most important class in UAIT is here that you'll begin the steps that'll define the rest of your lives. Looking over to the left side of the room, he pulled out a remote and pressed a button that brought out several containers with numbers on them, ranging from 120. Of course, one of the most vital parts of being a hero is looking good. Grab your costumes and meet back up AT Training Ground Beta. The students scrambled themselves, hardly wasting any time getting to the lockers and changing into outfits most of them probably spent their entire lives planning and designing. From Iida, who robotic night outfit was well thought out someone with a speed quirk, to Mainta, who for some reason thought wearing a large white semicircle as pants made him look cute instead of immature and childish, and even Toru, who probably didn't even put in an application for a costume. Not that Midoriya could have noticed, since to him, everyone might as well be naked. Midoriya, not really one for flash, even before the accident, stood alongside his classmates with pride, happy to be out of his stiff school uniform. The outfit a simple gi of green and yellow, just the normal tough outfit, don't worry, the costume will change later on. It was freeing for him and he wasn't about to waste any time holding back. Went for the simple look Deku. Achako stood next to him, wearing a pink and white astronaut-like suit with heels. Can't really afford to wear anything fancy. I have to have as much freedom for my arms and legs as possible. Probably should have followed your example. I wanted it to be more puffy, but they made it skin tight. Guess I should have specified that a bit more. This class is the best. Mainta comments, staring unashamedly at the girl's butt. He soon found his right leg embedded into the pavement, making him trip. Hey, I could have broken my ankle, you know. And I could have sent you to the Earth's core, but we all can't have what we want in life, do we? Izuku threw the short kid's body into the air, launching him behind all his classmates. Momo felt at peace knowing the grapist wouldn't be staring at her chest for the moment while Gyro made a mental note to get Midoriya on speed dial for perverted emergencies, and Toru wondered why no one was paying attention to her. All Might smiled at the latest generation of quirk users that stood before him. Of course, he came to this position in search of a new wielder of his own quirk, one for all, but that didn't make any of the other students here at UA any less important. In fact, now more than ever, with his time in the hero game coming to an end, it was important that every one of these kids learned what it meant to be a great hero, even if some of the students in class were less than ideal. Some had little issues, like Koda, who seemed too shy to even think about being a hero, and Mainta, who clearly had other things on his mind if what Midoriya did to him was anything to go by. Todoroki seemed fairly motivated, but only seemed to be focused on one aspect of his quirk, and Midoriya's weak point was fairly obvious, but all of that was manageable and feasible in the long run. Katsuki Bakugo, on the other hand, definitely felt like a long-term project if they were going to get anything remotely decent out of him. He had read up on Aizawa's assessment of his class beforehand, and everything that pertained to the explosion user worried him. Brash, arrogant, and an instinctually sense of self-entitlement that showed itself in the form of yelling and death threats whenever his ego was called into question. Also, his natural negative nature seemed to be amplified whenever he had any interaction with Izuku Midoriya, a detail that sent a sick feeling into the hero's non-existent stomach, given what the boy had already told of his past. Still, right now, none of that mattered. Actions were what was needed now, and as the teacher, he'd be sure to judge all of the students' actions equally and without favoritism. They say clothes make the pros, and you zygotes are living proof of that. Now that we're ready, let's begin with battle training. Excuse me, All Might Sir. The youngest Ida raised his hand. This is the same training ground that the exams were held in. Does that mean we're going to focus on more urban scenarios? Not quite. It's true that you're more than likely to face violence in open STRETS, as you see in the media. But, statistically speaking, most villain activity appear in indoor complexes, BACKDOOR deals, and hideouts. As such, your test for today is to combat each other in one of the buildings. Isn't that a bit advanced for basic training, Ribbit? Tsuyu Asui asked curiously, keeping the same blank frog stare that stared into the depths of one's soul. Practical experience is basic training. So how much can we hurt each other? How will we be graded? We aren't going to be expelled if we fail like with Aizawa's apprehension test. Isn't this cape magnificent? I was getting to that. My quirk isn't super hearing, you know. But what is your quirk? Midoriya asked, genuinely curious what the pro would say, knowing that the number one was notorious for dodging any questions relating to his power. All Might lost his composure, clearly frazzled by his lack of teaching experience. Clearing his throat, he took out a stack of cards and began reading off them. In this scenario, villains are harboring a bomb inside a building, which the HEROEs must infiltrate and CONFESCATE. He totally dodged my question. Each of you now will be divided up into teams of 2. One side will be the heroess while the others will act the role of the villains. The HEROE's goal is to defuse the bomb or capture the villains with the capture tape that you'll all RECIVE. All the villains have to do to secure victory is wait out the 10-minute timer. But sir, surely that gives the villains more of an advantage than the heroes. Ida asked, more than a little baffled by how class was being presented. Guess that's the point. Midoriya answered. After all, if we're patrolling the streets, we can't know ahead of time when a villain will strike. Sure, we have leads and patterns and such, but motives can change on a dime. Another villain can pop up out of nowhere when we least expect it. Like Aizawa said yesterday, we're here to fight the unfairness that the world throws at us. Crap, I totally forgot to expand on that. Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. Liar. Now, if we don't have any more INTORRUPTIONS, I'll assign teams by drawing lots. After all, you'll most be able to work with anything, with anyone at any given time. Okay, I know you want to sound like you know what you're doing, but you're kinda pushing it now. Midoriya still thought the hero was great, but seeing the great number one as a buffoon was both shocking and hilarious at the same time. Guess we can't expect you to be great at everything. The selection process took almost no time, and fortunately for Midoriya, the letters were emboldened just enough for him to recognize what it was. A, is anyone on Team A? I am, Achako cheered. Wow, paired together, I guess it must be fate or something. Ha, maybe. I like to think I make my own fate. He sighed as he turned his attention to Ida, who sadly drew the short end of the stick if the cursing next to him was any indication. Poor Ida. I'd say, that's a punishment I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. Same here, although I only say that because Bakugo is my worst enemy, and I know he's too in love with himself to ever find more of him terrible. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's looked into ways he could marry himself. The gravity girl laughed, bringing a smile to the blind boy's face. Yeah, this is what I want to bring a hero. If I can't see their smiles, then I'll settle for hearing their joy. And the teams to start off the battle trials will be these GUIS. All Might held up 2 orbs, and everyone started looking in Izuku's direction, and an instant wave of worry came over the class. We're fighting Bakugo, huh? Yep, Achako answered, thinking it was more a statement of the obvious rather than a genuine question. Shit. Yep. Hell yes, finally. I get to show that bastard who's top dog around here. Bakugo became the happiest he's ever been in a long team, happier than his acceptance into you. Happier than the time his mom got him that all might onesie as a kid, not that he ever told anyone about that, least they die. He and the four-eyed elitist were teamed up, but that was one problem he could ignore entirely. How long had Deku held on to that quirk? How much time did he spend laughing his ass off alongside that vampire bitch of a girlfriend? How long has he been looking down at him, that MOTHRFU? Bakugo, Bakugo. Oh wah, oh yeah, four eyes. I know you like this situation as much as I do, but for the time being, we need to put that aside if we're going to get anywhere. Fuck off, four eyes. I don't need your help. It's a team exercise. That automatically means you need my help. The walking can opener got all bent out of shape. Look, you knew Midoriya when you were younger, correct? I'd like to gain insight as to what his quirk entails. Hell if I know, I didn't even know the runt had a quirk until yesterday. Not like it mattered. One single blast in that blind freak's face should cover everything. Not like another explosion can make him any more blind than he already is. And that round-faced extra would probably surrender out of sheer fear afterwards. More and more troubling. Would this moron shut up for 5 seconds? Then I guess it's up to us to formulate a plan to counter. Fuck that. I'm going after them. You watch the bomb. I'll end this before the 5-minute mark. But Midoriya's quirk. Deku's quirk lets him move shit. I blow shit up. End of story. Hahaha, wow, he really likes to hear himself talk. Midoriya saw the entire argument from the outside. He and Achako were given 5 minutes of prep time before they began, and Achako was doing as much as she could to memorize the layout. Okay, so we should move from here, and if we make a right there. She shook her head. Deku, you wouldn't happen to make sense of any of this. No need, I know exactly where they are right now. He pointed upward. 5th floor, and Bakugo isn't planning on working with Ida anytime soon, so that means he'll be heading straight for us. Of course not. She nodded, feeling lucky she has someone with a little more insight into their opponent. Hey, how do you know where they are? You've noticed that I don't wear shoes, right, twinkle toes? She nodded. It was probably the most standout thing about the plain-looking boy. Well, the main reason is that my quirk allows me to sense the earth around me. And with every step, I feel every single vibration around me, and in my head, it forms a black and white picture. So like echolocation, but for your feet. Exactly. My seismic sense doesn't allow me to detect anything detailed, but I can get the general outline and shape. He looked towards the building. And the best part about it, Bakugo has no idea how my quirk works, but I know everything about his. Wow, so your hatred for each other is like on a whole other level. She squealed. It sounds like a fated battle between rivals or something. Okay, that's the funniest thing I've heard you say. So glad I'm not the sole source of comedy in our little group. What do you mean? Well, Robot Jones over there isn't exactly the class clown, so getting him to loosen up is clearly our role in. No, I mean about what I said before. Oh yeah. Now wasn't the time to spill all the beans, but she seemed curious enough when most people wouldn't give a crap. Might as well indulge her. Well, you're right in saying we hate each other, like. I don't think you could ever undersell just how much we dispise each other, but to say he's my rival is like saying All Might's secretly evil. There's just some things that aren't feasible in any reality. Why, I thought you'd jump at the chance to knock him down. Oh, I don't need to do that. Reality's doing the job for me. Midoriya smirked. Calling him a rival implies I respect him in some way, and I don't. He's a brash, ungrateful, arrogant piece of shit, and until the day he becomes anything more than that, that's all he is. Fortunately for us, Bakugo is always itching for a fight, and we're going to use that tunnel vision against him. So there is a plan. Yep, and you're the most vital part of it, twinkle toes. All right, front row seats to the action. Kirishima got pumped up, as did the rest of the students. They gathered together in a second location where dozens of screens monitored the building from the inside and out. The top 2 scorers of the entrance exam, Now this is going to be a manly fight. A battle of the elite for the title of the crown. Takami agreed. More like a bloodbath. Mina corrected. Did you guys see how crazy Bakugo went at the apprehension test? You mean when he let his quirk loose and shouted, "Deku, you bastard"? Zero remembered, giving a pretty accurate impression of the blonde bomber. Yeah, guy just got here and he's already trying to commit murder. Dude needs to chill. Kaminari rolled his eyes. Do we know the story behind that? Asui asked. In fact, do we know anything about Midoriya at all? The guy has that loner look about him, but he's already pretty chummy with Ida and Uraraka. Shoji observed, not noticing the looks he was getting, considering his mask also gave off that vibe. He told me back at the test he was waiting for the time to unleash his true power. Takami recalled his brief conversation with the green teen, to have so much skill and only show a fraction of it. As the others wondered about the implications of this, one Shoto Todoroki raised an eye, making sure to monitor the screen very closely. Aside from the other recommendation student, Midoriya was the closest to him in the quirk test, and even then he was pretty sure in terms of strength. The gap between the two of them was smaller than anybody else in the room. The two-hair-toned teen frowned, wondering how he should approach this. You, of course, had always been the plan from the beginning, even before his father took charge of his future. But there was a more deeper, personal desire to come here. UA had the best of the best, which meant that if her could beat everyone here using only his ice, then he could finally stick it to his father and be free of him. Midoriya, as it stood, seemed to be the biggest obstacle at the moment. I know it's presumptuous of me, especially when we don't know each other. The test began as both teams made their move, but I will beat you. Izuku, seemingly alone, made his way to the third floor, walking down an empty hallway, about to make a turn, before stopping, smelling an excess of sweat and BO, and hearing the roars of what most would assume to be an angry panther. I got you. Bakugo, not skipping a beat, blasted the moment he assumed Miridia would turn his head. Instead of soft flesh, Bakugo made contact with open air as Izuku ducked below him, making sure to create as much distance between them as possible. What's the matter, Deku? Where's your fancy quirk now? Is that all that matter to you? Midoriya tilted his head. I mean, you've spent all this time assuming I was quirkless when you know that I've told you, like 5 times beforehand. You're just mad that your ego makes you as blind as me. Shut up. Bakugo screamed, destroying chunks of the wall around him. You're never going to let that go, are you? You've been laughing this whole time, haven't you? Enjoying the power you held over me for years, and now that it's gone, you come in just to mock me. Mock you, Bakugo, I hate you. Midoriya replied calmly, more calmly than Bakugo was expecting. No, what Bakugo was expecting was for Deku to be a shivering mess, but still standing nonetheless. No, this Deku was calm, and he steadily stood his ground. More than that, I hardly know who you are. I was gone for like 7 years, and even after that, we've hardly ever talked to each other. Sure, our moms are friends, but that doesn't connect us at all. What are you getting at? You've deluded yourself into creating a reality where I'm some sort of obstacle for you to pass. But the truth is I'm not. I don't think endlessly about you, about how I need to beat you in order to move on, because I already have. So no, I don't look down at you. I've looked at the road ahead of me, and that road doesn't involve you in any way. What, Deku? You standing there, acting like you're not afraid of me, talking to me like you're the main character here. That's why I've always hated. Now twinkle toes. Why would he? Nice try, Bakugo, but you should have watched your back. Achako fell from the ceiling and attacked from behind, activating her quirk as she restrained his arms with the capture tape. Nice try, round face, but you can't stop me that easily. So what if he was floating off the ground? That just propelling himself with explosions all the more easier. All Might hasn't called it yet, so all he needed to do is blast the tape off and San Andreas smash. Coating his arm in the rumble Bakugo had managed to make, Izuku rushed over to the blonde and collided his rocky fist into Bakugo's gut before launching it, as well as the blonde, to the end of the hallway. The last thing Baku saw before slipping into unconsciousness was Deku raising his for a high five from round face. The first fight of the school year, and Bakugo lost. I'm not going to lie, I was kind of expecting something a little more explosive. Pun not intended. Gyro muttered out loud. I mean, I totally loved that Boom Boom over there got completely thrashed, but it was not underwhelming, but quick. I'll say, I'm not a fan of how they did it. Kirishima voiced his opinion. Sneaking and ganging up on one guy not that manly. It was a perfectly viable and well-executed SDRADEGY, young KIRISHIMA. All Might corrected. I know as heroes, there are certain values we must adhere to, but saving lives with no casualty is a perfection we strive for every day. The teacher's right. Momo spoke up. Midoriya's quirk, if it truly does allow him to control all Earth, could have done things without even going inside. He could have ripped open the Earth and caved in everyone, but that not only would result in the bomb being damaged, but also endanger the lives of both the villains and any civilians nearby. Additionally, Midoriya's plan both incorporated this reasoning in mind and his partner's quirk, as well as taking advantage of Bakugo's single-minded attitude. Otherwise, he would have known Ochako was hiding right in front of him. Crap, she said that better than I ever could have. Curse you, lack of actually teaching experience. Exactly what I was thinking. So what you're saying is Midori is the MVP? Sato asked the black ponytailed girl. It's too soon to tell, given that Iida hasn't had the chance to shine yet, but it very well could be that if my hunch about what's going to happen is correct. Young Bakugo has been eliminated. The HEORES only have 5 minutes left. I guess that's only fair. Still, that doesn't leave me with a lot of options, does it? Iida mewed over the unfortunate hand he was dealt with his teammate already out of the game, not that he was particularly hung up on that, and the heroes already making their way. Iida pondered what to do next. Still, Bakugo performed his role as the villain well. Is that what I must do? He chuckled evilly. If I am to bring honor to the Iida family name, I must temporarily devote my cause to evil. He laughed louder. Ha 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 ha, come if you're feeling brave enough, heroes. Come and seal your doom. The next thing Iida knew, he found Midoriya on the ground, laughing his butt off and wiping away a few tears of joy. Sorry, it just that. I really admire your dedication to the... He couldn't finish as the rest was filled up with more laughter. Why, thank you. I was afraid I was being too subtle about it, but it's nice to know. Wait a second. I know what you're trying to do. Iida marched forward. You may have defeated my partner in crime, but I assure you I'm twice as dangerous as that imbecile. Really, because considering who we're talking about, that's not an easy feat to manage. Izuku finally calmed down and picked himself back up. Besides, you should be looking for a fight. My partner's about to get the bomb anyway. Sure enough, Ochako was on the ceiling again, floating above the bomb. Release. In the name of evil, I demand that you stop. Not a lot of time left. Maybe if he ran fast enough, he can reach it before her and make it a game of keep away. Splat. Thunk. Iida trip over a bump that wasn't there before. The hero team WINS. WOHO. Yeah, we did it, Deku. The gravity girl rushed to her teammate, helping her fallen foes back on his feet. We sure did, Twinkle Toes, we sure did. Kinda surprised, actually, that you were able to hold in your laughter for so long. He turned to Iida. Not that I blame you. I mean, none of that laughter was faked. Maybe Robot Jones has more humor programmed into him than we thought. I was just getting into character. This is supposed to simulate real life after all. Iida bowed, only slightly irritated he wasn't able to do much in the exercise. You have performed admirably, my friend. I shall take this experience and use it to push myself forward. Same here, RJ, same here. He walked towards the exit but noticed the two weren't following. What is it now? RJ, Ochako wondered. You know Robot Jones, don't tell me you haven't noticed how he moves his arms, right? What's wrong with how I move my arms? I'm just trying to improvise my points. The tall teen huffed. I'd prefer if you just use Iida. Nah, he waved off. Unlike Bakugo back there, if I give a nickname to you, it means I like you. He walked away more. Now come on, Twinkle Toes, pick up the pace and get moving. Pretty sure the others are waiting for us. The two were unsure what to make of this, silently staring at each other before moving. He's definitely a interesting fellow, isn't he? Pretty aloof for a hero student. Maybe, but it was his plan that allowed us to win. Uraraka said, "Nice to know you can still be smart and serious while having fun with it. I prefer snarky and funny over Bakugo's brand of heroism any day." There is truth in that, I will admit.